For all. All right, please take your seats. Apologies for being 5 minutes late. We had a lot going on in an attorney-client session, so I apologize. Just keep in mind, anything you say, for those who haven't been here before, gets picked up by the ambient mics. All these mics are hot up here as well as back on the table there, so if you whisper something, it's going to get picked up and transmitted on our live stream. I'd also like to point out that the village just invested in a new camera system. So if you look up here at the top, the village clerk has control of that. So whoever's speaking from the dais, or if the attorney for the village is speaking, and now for the department heads in the back, the camera can be panned around, including to the podium over here. We can zoom in now. It just gives us a lot of different features that we did not have before. And gentlemen in the back, the superintendents, we tried to divide the tables up today, but we don't have a drop to get another mic over there. So you'll get a reprieve and you guys can sit in the L shape that you're comfortable with for a while longer. Let me just point out that the entire board is here. We do not have Chief Dixon here. He had a family issue that came up that he has to attend to, but other than that, we have everybody here. All right, with that having been said, I'm going to ask for a motion to open the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the meeting is now opened. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Village of Cornwall and Hudson for the month of November. Just to let you know, Doris, remind me if I'm right here, in December, our meetings are the 9th and the 16th. Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
The 9th of December will be our work session. The 16th will be our village board meeting, which will be here. Both of those meetings are open to the public, and both of them, if you cannot attend, are always live streamed. All of our agendas are put online. They're either on our village website or on our village Facebook page. And the meetings, after they conclude, if you don't get a chance to watch in real time, they're available on our YouTube channel. So nothing happens in here without you being available to find it. All right, so moving forward, I think the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and pass the minutes. So may I get a motion to approve the minutes from October 21st, 2024 for the village board meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Abstain. I wasn't at the October 21st.
That's right.
Doris, you make a note of that?
First.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 16th, 2024 village board meeting? May I have a,
So
nope.
moved.
May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. There are two public comment sessions. So there's one at the beginning of the meeting, and we don't restrict you to agenda items or not. There's also one at the end of the meeting. So we just ask that you keep your comments 2-3 minutes, and we don't normally get the hook out as long as you're reasonable, you're moving the ball forward, there's no ad hominem attacks, and you're making your points. We'll give you as much time, but we like to keep it around 3 minutes. Does anybody from the public wish to speak tonight? Keep in mind, if you're here for a public hearing, there'll be an opportunity to speak then as well. Okay, Mr. Manassi. Step up, please state your name and your address for the record.
Dominic Benassi, I'm at 10 Churchill Street. And I just wanted to mention, I know that the issue of the parking on Churchill Street is a big topic. I just wanted to reiterate, all we wanted to do was, because when the initial signs were put up, what happened was no one could park on the block at all from Fellow Garrison's driveway all the way through. And that caused a problem for family and other friends who wanted to park on the lot. So even though it was a great idea, that's not what we originally intended to happen. All we wanted was a small section so that we can get out. So because during holidays in the restaurant, people love to park across the street, all over the street, and we couldn't get out. Sometimes we almost would hit somebody trying to get out. So I understood why that was done. But from what I understood, it wasn't supposed to be the whole block. All we wanted to do was a certain section. So all we're asking for is you can leave the no parking where it is, right, like literally right across the street from me, diagonally across the street. But the one on the other end, just pull that up.
You're saying at Spruce Street to pull it up.
That's on corner of Churchill and Spruce, right there. That's so that people can still park on the block, but just toward the end of the block. That's all we're asking to do.
That sign is not all the way at the end though, because Dave, from the stop sign, and there's 25 feet that there's no
I think it's 20.
20 feet where there's no parking by state code. So you can't park that close because otherwise you can't see to make turns. So there's like is it 20 feet?
I think it's 20.
Okay, I'm gonna trust Dave.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do so that people can still park on the block?
Not within that 20 feet, but on the block. So this is gonna be interesting tonight because as we talk about this, Dave and I had come down there and met with you. We'd met with others 3 years ago when we first looked to do this. We gotten some complaints because obviously for people that are uninitiated, people that live on River Avenue, some of them, their driveways are obviously on Churchill Street. And the issues were when we got big snowstorms, especially people parked on that street, you couldn't get out of your driveways. So we were seeking a solution there. So I'm probably gonna be the first mayor to go down in history that his first law that he passed was on Churchill Street. And it will probably be the last law that he also rescinds on his way out. That
We're talking about, so in other words, so we can keep the no parking over there, but the one that's over here, there's no way of moving it.
So this
or-
you, Dave, you and I had gone there and looked at that. What did you recommend in regards to doing
We're
this?
talking about that, if you're gonna put a section of parking in the middle of the street, you're gonna really confuse people, because you're gonna have 8 no parking signs, and
On a tiny stretch of road.
you can park between, but you can't. So it'd be confusing, not just for the residents, but for your company that comes in.
So let me just ask this. So, because I'm looking at the pictures, Miss Garrison gave this to us. So the no parking sign that's closest to Spruce, you're saying 20 feet in, up Churchill, you can park, okay.
That's
And what you guys want is the sign to be put 20 feet from, essentially what would happen is 20 feet from Spruce Street.
Right.
And then you'd be able to park, essentially one sign would say parking from here up to the other sign. So the arrows would be pointing, you could park between this area.
We have something only because, like I said, we do have family, we do have friends come by, have the door, have their own car. We only have only have one driveway. And so I just was wondering. if we could-
Which fits only one car, correct?
What?
It fits one car, right? Your driveway?
One car.
Then everything else remains the same?
Yes, I mean, do you
Is that
want to
right?
say something to
So
it?
we're moving, it's essentially just one sign. I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Both of you come up, I would like to.
Yeah, sure, yes.
She'll be able to explain further.
Hi everyone, Ellen and Matt Harrison, 7 Churchill Street, Cornwall, Hudson.
7 Churchill Street, okay.
Thank you, Dominic, thank you everyone. There are already 8 no parking signs on our street.
Yeah.
It's my understanding, the no parking sign at the bottom of our street is not 20 feet in. If it should be 20 feet in, it's not correct, and it's not been correct, I guess, since the law was passed maybe 3 years ago. It doesn't appear to me that it's 20 feet, and you guys could see it in the photos.
Let me
That's
just interrupt you.
that's the
Dave,
minor thing.
you don't have to have a no parking sign to say no parking from a intersection back. That is New York State law,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So we added the no parking signs, to your point.
Okay, so then that would have to be changed to no parking here to corner, 20 feet in. That sign at the bottom of the street. If this was to be negotiated or changed in some way. Above our driveway, everything can remain the same except Jim and I spoke earlier. There had been a sign at the top of our street that said no parking here to corner. That's no longer there. It was always covered by brush. I think that was moved to the end of the corner and now it just says no parking. There were lines on the top end of the street, no, I'm sorry, I'm talking about all the parking on the street, but there were lines at the top of the street that intimated no parking additionally, in addition to the sign that often was covered, so that people did not park there, so the fire truck could make the turn and come down the street. So that does need to be fixed, but the road was only paved 2 months ago, I figured that was gonna be fixed. From our driveway down to, okay, so just above our driveway, we have a no parking sign. Just at the lower end of our property, we have a no parking sign. and obviously again at the bottom of the street. At the top of our driveway, the no parking sign has an arrow pointing down. No other sign has an arrow. Dominic and I thought, Matt and I thought that if we were to keep all of us happy and have parking for the Manasses, because they don't have enough parking, and keep the Berrians happy right across the street because they can't back out of their driveway, that then we could leave the lower sign at the bottom of our property there, and then that would avail the Manasses a few spots to park. I don't know how many spots that would be if that lower sign has to come up 20 feet from the corner. It's my guess it might be 3 spots. But for the Manasseh family, that's a lot of spots, because they don't have any spots right now. I've been here over 30 years, and we were always able to park on the street. Now, all of a sudden, 3 years ago, all of a sudden, our neighbors said, hey, we can't back out of our driveway. I'm like, well, everybody's been backing out of this driveway for 50 years. I don't know what happened.
I think a big part of that was the snowstorms. We had a couple of big
I was
snowstorms.
the one
kinda
that
like
called
getting out of the
DPW,
bottom of
asked Dave
Duncan.
all the time to say, hey, the guys didn't plow the street wide enough, they need to plow the street wider. And they always came back and plowed the street wider. I was the one that made sure of that because my daughter has a disability and therefore people, her helpers, were able to park on the street and my neighbors didn't have to worry about hitting their cars and I didn't have to worry about her workers getting their car hit by my neighbors. So I'm the one that policed the street and did all that. I kind of let go of it a few years ago when I wasn't looking, then this was all changed 3 years ago. But it would be really nice that if the Manasseh family did have a few spots available to them, that they would be able to park. And we make do. You know, we can make do with our driveway, but it's kind of nice not having oil stains in front of our house and divots in the mound of, the property that we have right that meets the road. We also didn't want that sign moved up because then we would feel like it's kind of in the middle of our property. And that's difficult for my husband to think about dealing with that.
I'm meticulous about cutting the grass, okay? So that was my pet peeve.
So at the end of the day, though, like I said before, what it sounds like is that the solution to this is what you seem to all agree, and that is, and Dave, you have to correct me, is you move this sign that's at closest to Spruce, you move that in 20 feet up Churchill. Then the sign has to indicate that they can't park from there to the corner.
Yes, we need access for, especially,
Right.
these guys will tell you, that ladder truck, if you gotta get in or out of there, you're not, it's a one-way street.
Right, but then the sign that the Garrisons are talking about, that's the other sign that's in front of their house, if you're standing in front of their house, is to the right.
On the upside of the driveway.
Yes.
Yes.
No parking.
No,
You'd have
the
to
downhill
put
side of the
the
driveway.
downhill side of the driveway. So what I'm saying is that'll have to point up the street. You have to indicate where they can't park.
It can't just say no parking. It has
Right,
to say
because-
with a directional
Because then-
arrow.
Right,
Or no parking between signs, if I may.
or whatever. You see what I'm saying, Dave?
Yes, I know what you.
Kid, that sounds doable. Does that sound doable?
So you, just so I'm.
Here, I'll show you. Dave, come here.
You wanna create a two parking spots in the middle of a no parking.
You're moving this to 20 feet. This would say no park from here to the corner. Then this sign says no parking, but it's up toward this.
Can we
street.
stripe
In
it
between here is where you
and
can
say
park.
park in designated areas
Two
only?
parking spaces down there,
2 or 3, whatever. Yeah.
maybe 2.
Okay. But it's something.
Dave, are there laws that
It's for family, friends, I'm sure.
Can I do this? Can I make a motion to open up the public hearing on the local law to amend chapter 155-48, requesting a rescinding of the no parking areas on the west side of Churchill? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the public hearing is now open. We will take those comments as part of the public hearing. So Dave, do we need to essentially rescind what happened before, or can we make these, what Deputy Mayor Kane is saying, these tweaks, which I would think would be minor tweaks?
I'll go to the council on that because he's the one that drew up the.
Council?
I'd have to look because now we made it no parking, and now we're maybe rescinding it. But if it's no parking,
partially rescinding.
Yeah, it's partial rescinding.
we'll fix it somehow. We'll
All right, so it's not gonna get done.
you figure out what you need to do, and then I can figure out the language. That's not.
Right. Dave, are you understanding what Jim is saying and what the Garrisons and Manasses are essentially asking? Because I think I think I know what they're talking about, but are you good?
I know what they're talking about, I just think it's gonna, in my opinion, it's tough to do. Because you're gonna have, you have parking, no parking, parking, no parking in a 250-foot stretch of road.
So why can't there be two signs? One that says 20 feet up from the stop sign that says no parking to corner, that with an arrow. Then you leave it open. Then you put another sign on the uphill side of the Garrison's driveway and you say no parking to corner, which leaves that space from their driveway
It's
to the
not
first
corner,
sign.
it's the next sign.
Before the corner.
No, he's going the other way. It doesn't go all the way up to the corner though.
It doesn't.
You and I know what they do. You know what we're trying to do. I get what you're saying, Dave, but the bottom line is it's yes, it's dividing up the street, but if they're happy with it and you're getting an extra 2 parking spaces and we don't have to move any other signs. This is just moving one and making the sign clearer of where you can and can't park.
If that's what you guys wanna do, I'll do
Yes.
whatever you guys wanna
Used to
do.
be
I was
Tuesday.
trying to do the easiest,
So
most logical
Street used to be
thing to
two-way.
do. I know.
yeah, so when did the street go from 2-way to 1-way? How long ago? When did it go from 2-way to 1-way?
When I was a kid, it was two-way.
Over 30 years ago.
Yeah, well,
Frank Lent would have known.
yeah.
And Dave says, when I was a kid, that was a while ago. Okay, so,
May I add a comment?
sure,
If we rescinded the whole law, our neighbors, the Varians, would be very upset and they would be.
'Cause they wouldn't be
next
able to
month.
back out.
Yeah, they would be very, very upset.
Yeah, it was a free, listen, we know it was a free-for-all on that street, we know that.
and again, you're not getting, probably not down by you, but you guys, you're not getting encroachment. Obviously with Storm King Lounge open and everything, we know that there is parking on the upper end of the street. But that encroachment isn't going past your driveway, is it? The people that park past your driveway are residents of Churchill Street, correct? So we're just trying to get it right for you guys, as long as it's not outsiders that are coming in and taking those spots.
You're gonna have the parking for the businesses as well. You can't limit it to the residents.
I'm not suggesting we do, I'm just saying, what is the anecdotal, nobody's parking down that way.
I understand that, I understand that, there'll be a Saturday night, there'll be no parking available.
You gotta get there
I'll
first.
park in the corner or
That's the
something.
bottom
Yep.
I get it.
And forgive me for another
Protect yourself, you get there
clarification, on the
first.
other side
You
of
know,
the
on
street,
Saturday.
on the east side of Churchill, there are 4 no parking signs that I did send photos of. Respectfully, I would prefer if the sign said no parking this side. Please consider it, if it's an issue, if it's not possible, we understand. I just feel like if we're talking about the signs on the street, we might as well. do
You're
it.
talking about the side of the street, the opposite side from your house.
Like south
I get
side,
that, I get that,
southeast,
yeah. Okay,
Right, east.
all right, so Joe, what do we need to do while you research how we can tweak this? So maybe there's a way for us not to rescind the law, but just to tweak the signage? Can we add an amendment to the law?
Keep the
I'm asking, I don't,
keep the public hearing open, but we amend the.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, keep the public hearing open. And the prior law was to
Designated no parking.
for no parking over what was left on the street.
Yes,
So now we have to make it less no parking on the street. You should just make the no parking signs with those erasable markers. You hang a little marker, and when you need parking, you say no parking, and then just erase it.
Some parking.
Erase it. So-
Since we're keeping the public hearing open to our next meeting, right, so that we can then resolve and do
Yeah.
I would say we
Yeah, it's
need.
gonna take a
I
little
saw
bit.
that Trustee Kane had drawn up a literal back of the napkin, or on a napkin had a map. I think a map would be ideal. I would like to see visually where we're proposing to allow parking on the street and where the photos, like, perspective wise, if I'm not standing there, I'm not looking at, you know what I mean?
Right.
And just we'll have that for next month too, so that we can be
right.
very clear about what we're allowing. And I just have a question for Dave. Is there any law or guideline or anything that prevents us from designating by striping parking in designated areas only, and then having white a box on the street and then yellow where you can't? Is
We do that now,
on the street? Is it-
on where we mark parking spots on Hudson Street and stuff like that.
Right.
Those side streets none of the side streets are marked out that way.
Right.
They have no parking here at the corner. no
Idlewild
parking-
has some, doesn't it, or no? No, I guess not.
As Dave was aware on Duncan Avenue when we had to eliminate parking on one side.
Okay,
And-
so we
and
don't now,
Churchill
but
is so narrow.
this is the most painful street in.
Yeah, because it's narrow, but, okay,
And the house down in the corner is very close to the roadway.
okay.
And pardon me, Bill, we had actually wondered about that instead of worrying about signs, that
Yeah.
we could have yellow lines right in front of our house, no parking right here, but we were like, that's not attractive either.
Right, I mean,
Yeah, and the other thing is, if we do
no
it for
parking
Churchill
signs is
Street,
also-
Yeah.
we do it for every street, and
Yeah.
it's just, okay, so what we need to do is, Counselor, keep the public hearing open.
Sure.
We will come up with, I'll get with Dave, we'll come up with what that sketch out looks like, the way that you guys described it. We will continue the public hearing in December. Nothing is gonna change for now, so we'll continue the public hearing in December, and we'll make then the motion to pass a resolution to hopefully tweak but not rescind the law. Is that fair?
You're gonna have to give it you're gonna have to publish
public-
it though for 30 days, right?
Right, but we're
the
gonna keep
public
the
hearing?
public hearing open.
No, I get it, but his amendment to the current law.
No, well, let's see what.
Okay,
Let's see if we have to completely start over again or
All right.
not. I mean,
Secretary of State.
it's published. We had the public hearing.
Yep.
We'll continue it.
Got it.
Let's just, as long as we have the new language in sufficient time before the next public hearing so that the public has notice and the board has notice,
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
All right. So, let me do this. Mr. Manassi, you submitted some written comments. We recorded your oral comments here. Obviously, the Garrisons, we've recorded yours. We will take that up with council, and we will keep the hearing open and attempt to resolve this in December. We might not be able to pass it then, but at least for the board to make a resolution in December, okay? Is that fair? All right, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing.
No.
No, not close it. I'm gonna make a motion to move on from the open to continue
Could continue the public hearing until the December meeting.
until the December meeting. All right? May I have a
Second.
Do we have to vote on
Second.
that? Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comment. Does anyone else wish to make any public comments on any other matters? You'll have an opportunity at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, I'm gonna close the public comment for the beginning of the meeting. Okay, next item of business after that is the board department reports. Thought I would try something new tonight. I'm gonna put the treasurer on blast here. And just like I do with the department heads during the work sessions, can you give us a rundown? You've got it in front of you, correct? The treasurer's report, and just kind of give the board a rundown since you were not at the work session in regards to the warrant and all of our expenditures and revenues for the month.
Sure. So for the month of October, the monthly water report, village, $225,741.68. The town, $608,541.37, totaling $834,283.05. Warrant number 10. There are no prepaids included in this, $708,656.60. The general fund revenue, 4,033,747.11. Expenditures, 3,610,55.46. Water fund revenue, 2,937,702.18. Expenditures, 2,089,905.73. Sewer fund revenue, 321,179.05. Expenditures, 274,131.96. Total receipts, 7,377,105.81. This is a percentage of 84.7487. The balance collected for sewer cap is 592,726.72 through the month of October. The total taxes collected, and this was the last month the village collected taxes, was 2,983,339. Continued training with Jean Mahoney on our budget, which we are in full budget season here. And NICLAS interest year to date as of November 6th is $23,531.89.
Respectfully submitted.
That's it.
Respectfully submitted, Maggie Dishman. I think that's it. I don't think
Okay.
there's.
Trustees, any questions for the village treasurer?
No.
All right, you got off easy. None of the other department heads have get off that easy, so you got off easy. All right, thank you for that. Just want to give Megan a little bit of experience in briefing out the treasurer's report. Building department, trustee Carnwright.
Yes, report for October 2024. Building permits issued 13. Certificate of compliance occupancy issued 12. On-site inspections 27. Violations 1. Stop work orders 0. Municipal searches 10. Solar panels 0. Fire inspections 3. Manny Carmona, Code Enforcement Officer.
Senor Carmona, anything to add, anything to focus on, or any issues you think that the trustees should be aware of?
No, nothing other than the thing that we spoke this morning, but no, nothing major.
Got it. Were you able to return that call to the applicant who submitted on the project on the New York Ford?
I did, sir.
All right, thank you. I spoke to them. I got a phone call earlier today, and I told them you were going to call them, so thank you for that. Trustees, any questions for the code enforcement officer? Seeing none, we'll move on. Fire department, trustee Paleota.
2024 department report. Automatic alarms, 4. Culinary mishaps, 1.
Was that in the firehouse, the culinary?
Not in the firehouse.
Okay.
And it does sound amusing, but that's how fires start. The last one that we went to, fire was actually starting to spread through paper plates, and they can catch. That's how we talk about them over the radio, but we get there before it becomes serious stuff, hopefully.
Yep.
Drills, 8. 3 EMS calls. Fire prevention duties, 2. Meetings, 2. Motor vehicle accidents, 1. Natural gas leaks, 1. Public service relations, 2. Smoke in a building, not a fire, 1. Standby for other departments, 1. Structure fires, Fort Montgomery, 1. Work detail, 2. Total volunteer hours, 442.5. Total events were 29. Fireboat 416 has been removed from the Hudson River and will remain in service until it is winterized later this month. The department has upgraded its rescue rope equipment and has been drilling with the new gear throughout October. Congratulations to firefighter Matt Wilhelm and Lieutenant Quinn, who have completed basic exterior firefighting operations and Fire Officer 1 respectively. Orange County has purchased and activated a new messaging platform for county departments. The new platform includes features that were not in the old system, including the ability to identify the 911 caller and playback of the two-tone dispatches from the pager system. Knoxbox Key Secure system was installed on apparatus and is awaiting programming.
Chief Quinn, anything to add to that? I know we got a couple items on the agenda that you're gonna get to later,
We'll
but
get to those
outside of
later.
that.
The stuff that's in the report, boat 416 is still in service, and it actually went out to a call shortly after this report was submitted, so there is still activity on the river. And I just want to acknowledge, in the month of November, our staff has been assisting with the fires over in Greenwood Lake. They've gone to the scene, and we've also provided regional coverage for the departments over there that are fighting fire. So our guys have been out there.
John, what is the status of that fire out there?
They don't brief me daily, but I was last there Saturday night?
Saturday into Sunday.
Yeah, Saturday into Sunday. The fire had burned approximately 5,200 acres. They were 88% contained, but the terrain is really difficult over there. Lots of steep cliffs and rocks. So there was a little bubble of land that was threatening structures. The radio has been quiet. I heard rangers coming out of the woods this afternoon or this morning, so hopefully that was for good reasons, not for bad. It's a different type of firefighting than what we're accustomed to on a daily basis. We charge in and start spraying hoses. The rangers, with the assistance of volunteers, rake leaves and patiently wait for the fire to get to them and hope that it doesn't jump over the line that they raked.
Do they do fire breaks like they do out west? They do?
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Charlie, and I don't want to make you a meteorologist, but I'm going to ask you to be one here. With 0.7 to 1.3 inches of water expected on Thursday through precipitation, that going to make a dent in this?
I really don't know. Not my area of expertise. The rain that we had last week, which was less than 1/4 of an inch, did nothing. Nothing at all. It takes a lot of water.
Significant water.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions for the chief? We got a couple items for the fire department coming up, but as far as the report, any trustee? Nope, seeing none, let's move on to the police department. Chief Dixon is not here. Trustee Brain.
Cornwall on Hudson Police Department monthly police report, October 1st through 31st, 2024. There were 500 total calls for service. There were no felony calls. There were no arrests. For misdemeanor and violation calls, there was 1 for fraud, 1 for criminal mischief, and 4 harassment or aggravated harassment. On vehicle and traffic, there was 1 personal injury accident, 6 property damage accidents, 12 traffic summonses issued, 7 traffic warnings issued, 3 parking summonses issued, 35 traffic enforcement posts, and 2 speed or radar sign postings. Non-criminal activity included 7 fire response calls, 4 domestic incidents, 11 alarm response calls, 1 noise complaint, 1 suspicious incident call, 8 animal complaints, 5 disorderly persons calls. Departmental assists, they assisted the town of Cornwall PD 13 times. They assisted EMS 6, other police agencies once. Welfare checks, they performed 4 of them, 4 citizens assists as well. During the month of October 2024, Cornwall on Hudson PD applied for approximately $5,009 in grant funding from the DCJS Office of Program Development and Funding, which would be utilized to purchase 1 AED, an automated external defibrillator, and 1 radar or speed sign. During the month of October, all COHPD officers participated in both implicit bias and de-escalation trainings pursuant to yearly police reform requirements. During the month of October 24, COHPD officer P.O. Thompson attended a 4-day field training officer certification course, which was held at the Orange County Police Academy in Middletown, New York. During the month as well, COHPD applied for approximately $1,630.78 in grant funding from PERMA, which will be utilized toward covering half the reimbursement costs of 2 bulletproof vests and full reimbursement costs for 2 bulletproof outer vest carriers. During the month as well, Cornwall on Hudson PD participated in First Responders Day, officers Thompson, Bunt, and Kapchik, which was held at Lee Road School in Cornwall, New York. Respectfully submitted, Chief Stephen E. Dixon.
All right, any questions from trustees?
No, I'll just mention that I believe that 35 number for traffic enforcement posts reflects both the reopened 218 and River Avenue, I believe, right?
Yes, this weekend we had gotten news that there was going to be, I don't want to call it a motorcycle rally, but like a motorcycle ride. There's these Facebook groups, and obviously the folks that live on Bayview Avenue, which is where 218 dumps off of the mountain as you come into the village of Cornwall and Hudson, are concerned about the speeds. The mountain on 218 has actually been changed from 55 miles per hour speed limit, which is insane that for years that's what it was, dropped down to 35. But as soon as you enter the village limits, it goes to 30. So, but you get people coming off the mountain still driving 55 or 60 as they come into the village, and then boom, you hit the 30 mile per hour speed limit. So asked the chief to coordinate with the town, because remember, 218 on the mountain is split between the town of Cornwall, the village owns none of it, and the other half of it is the town of Highlands. So our chief coordinated with the town of Highlands as well as the town of Cornwall, and this weekend they set up, I don't want to call them speed traps, I think that's a reductionist, but basically a safety and a deterrence by visibility, by putting our vehicles out there to kind of calm traffic a little bit. I didn't see a lot of the motorcycles on the mountain because we had a big event in the village and some of them came in, but nothing bad. And I'm waiting on the chief to give us a report from this weekend on what they encountered, because they were counting how many vehicles came over, how many people got pulled over, how many citations were issued, and those kind of things. So what we're trying to do now with a radar speed sign that basically as you come down off the mountain and enter into the village on Bayview, you're going to come around that first curve, and when you hit where Camp Olmsted is, we have a radar sign there that tells you your speed, which again, doesn't stop people from speeding, but it does give you an idea of what your speed is as you're coming in there, and then just putting more black and whites out there, and just as a deterrent. So that's what we did. Then the chief also provided an additional officer, because on Sunday we had a suicide awareness and prevention charity fundraiser event that was held at Storm King Lounge. There was a couple of bands that performed at the bandstand. There were raffles there. I believe at last count, they raised close to $19,000 for suicide prevention and awareness. So they did a great job, and it was a nice turnout. But we also had to bring an extra police officer in for that, and the chief did a great job of staffing that. All right, any other questions about police? All right, moving on to the Department of Public Works, Trustee Paleota.
Department of Public Works, October 2024. Trash collected for the month? I do not know. Recycling collected for the month. Hard waste collected of the month. We don't have totals.
Do we have totals now, Dave? I mean, we have. Yeah, I've got 100 yards of yard waste, 23.38 tons of recycling, and 136.54 tons of solid waste.
Oh, I don't have it
You
on
don't
mine.
have that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, those are the numbers.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Mowing and trimming of village-owned properties, preparation of winter equipment for the season, sweeping of streets, repairs and maintenance of village-owned vehicles. Fall bulk pickup was completed week of October 21st. Milling and paving of River Road, Washington Street, Lafayette Street, Olympus Street, and Taylor. Boat dock at River Front Park has been removed for the season. We have started leaf clearing from ditch lines. Several hazardous trees were removed. Crosswalks and stop bars repainted after paving. Notes, Dave Halverson attended, NICOM's Public Works School in Saratoga Springs, October 20th through 23rd, along with Deputy Mayor Kane. David Halverson, Superintendent of Public Works.
Anything to add, Mr. Superintendent? Nothing? Any questions for Dave from the board in regards to the last month? Okay. All right, moving on. Water Department, Trustee Carnwright.
Okay, monthly production, 23,815,000 gallons. Daily average, 768,000 gallons. Samples, we collected 56 samples under our approved water quality monitoring plan. Routine operations and maintenance under treatment, transmission, and distribution. 74 utility markups were completed. Water service shutoffs, turn-ons at owner's request. 13 Beatty Terrace, 18 Maple Street, 75 Duncan Avenue, and 54 Clark Avenue. Water main leak repaired on Murray Road. Curb box installed, 93 Holloran Road. Service line leak, 18 Shedane Avenue. Water main valve repaired, Broadway, Smith Road, Shedane Avenue, and Yeager Drive. Replaced the fire hydrant, Beeks Road, Holloran Road, at Holloran Road, Russell Street at Highland Avenue, Quaker Avenue at Mill Street. Fall fire hydrant flushing was completed in the town and the village. Repaired River Avenue 2-inch pressure regulating valve. Meters. Red commercial meters, 7 final water meter readings were completed. 6 residential water meter readings replaced. 6 miscellaneous jobs completed. 7 water line inspections were completed. Boil water advisories for Murray Road issued and subsequently rescinded. Russell Street, Highland Avenue issued and rescinded. Notes. Research in GIS equipment and mapping software subscription. Research providers for large meter testing and researching providers for water rate analysis. Michael P. Trainer, Water Superintendent. Thank you, Mike.
Michael, anything to add?
No, sir.
Village Board, any questions for the Water Superintendent?
Oh, by the way, yeah, I have a question. So I read, and you read in the paper all the, you see the pictures of the show can, and you see the pictures of the Pacton, and you see all these reservoirs are way down.
Mhm.
So we are currently not drawing anything from our reservoirs. Is that correct?
Correct.
And they stand at what percentage of fullness?
Our reservoirs are at 99%,
Wow.
and our
That's even with the sphagnum drawn down on purpose.
No, the sphagnum, we didn't include that because we do draw that down for maintenance reasons.
Right.
But the 2 main reservoirs are both completely full. And then 2 of the 3 backup reservoirs are near completely full.
You're still
And-
operating off the well field.
And we're operating off the wells, and the wells, I believe, are about 82% capacity.
So that's where the water table is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in good shape. Thank you, Mike.
At what percentage on the wells? I mean, is it 10% we'd be nervous, or is it 50% we'd be nervous? I mean, what's the?
We got ways to go. I think it gets down to 50%. We should start talking about things. But again, over the last 10 days, the wells haven't changed much, and that's because the way we operate them, they shut down for about 6 hours a day, and that allows the aquifer to recharge.
And Michael, what would, how many years now has it been that we have not drawn water off the New York City aqueduct?
4 years this month.
4 years this month. And in a pinch, I know they're drawn down too because everything in this region is, but in a pinch, that is our backup system, correct?
Well, our backup is the Black Rock reservoirs, and then Catskill is a backup to our backup.
Backup to the backup. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions for the water superintendent? Hearing none. New Windsor, Cornwall EMS, Deputy Mayor Kane.
Okay, the report for November. With respect to personnel, there are 3 new volunteers, 2 new part-time paramedics, no staff injuries, and the new schedule starts in January with the reduction in overtime to all EMTs. As for operational, there were 385 total dispatches, 100% of the calls were covered. 254 patients were transported. 270 in New Windsor, 69 Cornwall, and 8 in Cornwall and Hudson responses, 21 Highland Falls, 2 in Newburgh, 2 to the city of Newburgh, and 6 in Blooming Grove, and 8 at West Point. With respect to response times, New Windsor was 6 minutes, 23 seconds, Cornwall was 5 minutes, 34 seconds, and the village was 6 minutes, 22 seconds. The new paramedic fly car was placed into service. The surplus vehicle was sold, which was 10 years old. The new ambulance arrives in December. They promoted an employee to an assistant in HR. They're still waiting for the mental health provider to be hired for the project with independent living. They have access to the station and have been setting it up. And they're working with New York State on the grants that we've been awarded. They still haven't heard anything back from New York State or Assemblyman Christopher Eakes' office on the grant that they were awarded last spring. And the chief notes concerns with early voting and the amount of people that showed up at the ambulance station with their vehicles operating in the area. He said, we'll have to discuss this prior to the next presidential election. And that's it from Chief Biggs. Chief Biggs, excuse me.
Any questions, concerns from the board? Okay. All right, moving on. We're now moving on to the public hearings. Obviously, we addressed the issue on the requested amendment to Chapter 155-48 in regards to no parking areas on the west side of Churchill Street, of which we are going to continue to keep this hearing open till December. So that's been handled. So I'm going to move on to the next item on the public hearing related to the local law to amend Chapter 15 of the Village Code to include a new article concerning terms of office. Jim, do I need to read this first and then have public comment, or have public comment and then read it? I should read it first, correct? Because I'm going to make a motion to open the public hearing on the local law to amend Chapter 15 of the Village Code to include a new article concerning terms of office. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is now open. Do I have public comment on it, or should I read it first?
You can tell me, you can talk about it in general.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
So essentially, is that okay?
Yeah, explain it first so people know what to comment.
Got it. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to have placed on the March ballot, obviously the village elections are in March. The date of the election is March 18th. March 18th, which will be a Tuesday, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. in the Edward C. Moulton Jr. Memorial Boardroom where we are right now, and there will be a ballot initiative. Actually, we're seeking to make it a ballot initiative and to add it on to the ballot.
Correct. So this will be, since you're changing the terms of the offices of the public.
But we're not changing, we're requesting the public weigh in on the board's argument that the terms of the trustees are currently 2 years, and we would like to extend them to 4 years. It wouldn't impact anyone on this current board, and it doesn't impact the mayor. The mayor's term will stay at 2 years, but it makes sense from the board's perspective that for the point where the turnover on the board can be significant, and because on 2-year terms, we believe that, you win an election and then you're immediately running for another election, and for continuity purposes on the board, still allows you to switch out the top of the ticket in 2 years. But we argue that, just like the town, where the supervisor's position is a 2-year term, council member positions are always 4-year terms. So the questions may come, Jimmy, what's it like across the rest of the state? In New York State, there are 1,500 municipalities made up of towns, villages, and cities. Villages make up 562 of those 1,500 municipalities. Well, Jimmy, what do other villages do? That's what they do. It is across the board different. Some are 3 and 3. Some are 2 and 4. Some are 4 and 4. Some are 2 and 2. Some are 4 and 2. No rhyme or reason. You go up and you look at different counties, and you get further north, and they go to the 3 and 3, or the 2 and 3, or the 2 and 4. The board's just discussed this, and now with this going into my 6th year on the board, 4 years as mayor, it just makes sense to have the level of continuity that they do have in the town. Now, we're not going to make that decision. It's going to be left up to the voters. So when you come vote on March 18th, there will be a ballot initiative. If we agree to do this and we don't get any pushback from the public saying don't do it, there'll be a ballot initiative. It is a mayoral election where we typically get a bigger turnout. Well, Jimmy, what's the turnout? There's 3,000 residents in the village of Cornwall and Hudson. There are 2,100 registered voters. During, I don't want to say contentious, but during competitive mayoral elections, we may turn out 950 to 1,000 voters. During off-year elections, when we sometimes just have 2 trustees up for election, you can have as little as 300, 400, 500 people at the most. Yeah, turnout for an election. So we wanted to do this when the mayor was at the top of the ticket. We'll get more of a turnout, so we get more people voting on this, to see if the village thinks that it's a good idea. So we want to put it up to the voters. So what this public hearing is, without reading all of this, I just told you what it intends to do is to put it on the ballot. I will certainly message this and put this out publicly and remind people as we go into the election season, we need you to vote on this. The board's position is we think it's a good idea, but we want the village to weigh in on it. What did I miss, Judge?
No, there's, the one point to make is that this public hearing is different. It's actually the opposite of what we normally do at a public hearing. Normally you propose something and you seek the public's input before you determine whether to take action or not. Here, you're seeking the public's input, but if you adopt this, not just the people here that come to speak on it, but everyone in the village will actually get a chance to vote on it. So even if you would have people that would come, for instance, and speak out against this, in this particular case, it would almost make sense to not disregard, but accept their comments still approve it, so that everybody in the entire village could get their chance to come out and vote.
Although theoretically, if there was substantial public presence at our advertised public hearing
Sure.
for or against, that might influence the way we vote tonight.
It could,
to put it
yeah,
on the ballot.
yeah, right. But ultimately, since this is a change to the terms of office of the trustees, under New York state law, it could either be a permissive referendum, which actually there's kind of a mistake. They've amended the law several times over the years, and some of the New York state laws don't mesh with the New York state election law. So basically, this is the better approach, which is to make it a mandatory referendum. You don't have to worry about those inconsistencies between the general municipal law and the municipal home law and the election law. This is the best way to do it. It gives everybody in the village a chance to, all registered voters, an opportunity to vote on it.
And Judge, correct me if I'm wrong, but a permissive referendum requires a citizen, a resident, to go out and get a requisite number of signatures for or against to have something put on the ballot, and it's a percentage of the turnout in the last gubernatorial election.
Yes, it's 5% of the vote in the last gubernatorial election.
Okay, so we think we should put it up to the citizens to make the vote. The board's position on this, unless somebody's changed their position, is that it makes sense, and so that you don't think this is what politicians do in their typical self-serving, ways. Nobody on here gets affected by this. This would go into effect on your next election. So if somebody ran again and they were a trustee and they ran for a trustee and the citizens voted and said, yes, we want this, they would then run for a 4-year term. Nobody's terms up here are being extended.
I have a question for council. It's related but tangential. So we're saying in this, the resolution that's before us tonight, we say it will be subject to a mandatory referendum. Do we have that option on any law or any resolution that we?
You can, if there are, yes, if your action is subject to a permissive referendum, you can choose to make it a mandatory referendum.
Oh, okay.
When you say are subject to, are those usually fiscal matters, or could they be anything?
There are a handful.
Got it.
Yes.
It's narrow in scope.
Could we open the parking question on I'm not suggesting we do this. Could we open the parking question
No.
on Churchill Street to a mandatory
No,
referendum?
you can,
Okay,
there are
so
only certain
only the ones
statutory
that you
questions
have to-
that you can,
Okay.
that are subject to a permissive referendum.
All right, so the next thing you need to do is open it up to the public. Is anyone here, and I don't think so, but is anybody here to speak on this public hearing for this proposed resolution? And again, this resolution is only to put it on the ballot. Seeing no one, I'm going to, later when we get to resolutions, we can vote on this, but I'm just going to make a motion to close the public hearing in regards to the resolution of the Village Board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson adopting a local law to modify the terms of office for trustees from 2 years to 4 years and to amend Chapter 15 to add an Article 3 of the Village Code entitled, quote, term limits for elected officers, close quote. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and we'll move on, we'll
Yeah.
pass that shortly.
Joe.
Yeah.
Just so I've said it, the draft local law does change the terms, and it actually creates a short section in the village code. Under the law, the village board could do this either by resolution or by local law. Since we had time, this is not an emergency, right? Because the elections are not until March. This is really just my personal call. I felt it better, because this is such a significant act by the board, to actually, rather than do it simply by resolution, make a modification of the code. If anybody in the future doesn't remember when this happened or wanted to look it up or something else, it's memorialized in the code. It's there forever. It's easy to find. Instead of trying to go back and find a resolution from years ago, it's right there in the code.
But I think the board was only comfortable going forward with this if it was going to be subject to a ballot initiative to get the weigh-in from the public.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
this is just
Are you
how it's recorded.
Got it,
for-
but you're not suggesting that we could have done this by executive fiat or by
You could.
legislative action. We could
Could
have,
have done it by resolution.
not executive fiat, resolution.
But again, the resolution would have been subject to the referendum.
Got it. But it's easier, it makes more sense, and is more fair
But it
to
could have
put
been
it on the
permissive.
ballot.
It's in the book, it's in the code book, it's there, everybody can read it, easily accessible. That's
Okay.
why.
Right, I understand.
All right, moving on. We'll handle that resolution when we get to it. Next item is public hearing on the local law to create Chapter 153 of the Village Code entitled Tree Preservation. Now, the history of this is that the town has recently, I'd say within the last 4 months, passed a tree preservation law. And what is a tree preservation law? Well, there were concerns. Obviously, the golf course was the biggest concern on what happened there, where you had a developer come in, they were deciding to do something for what they felt were the right reasons, but there was a significant amount of clear cutting that happened on the property of the golf course. Mature growth trees, 100, 120, 130 years old, were cut down. And obviously, the town looked at this and said, we had nothing on the books that we could stop somebody to do it. There's a balance there, right? You want to protect our green spaces. That's why people live here. But you also don't want to tell somebody that owns a piece of private property, you can or cannot do this. Mrs. McGillicuddy, you can't cut down that nuisance bush next to your garage because we're the tree police. We wanted to find a good balance. Dave Carnwright is the village board's liaison to the Cornwall Conservation Advisory Council. Carla Castillo is the chair of that. It's a wonderful committee. They meet monthly and they look at ways of preserving the environment, taking care of climate issues, and they're the people that look out for trees around these parts. So they agonized over this. They looked at other entities, other municipalities. How did they handle this? And they came up with a tree preservation law. The town passed it. It then came to the village. We wanted to wait to see what the town passed. And then when we took a look at it, there were some tweaks that needed to be made. Council added some tweaks. Members of this board added some tweaks. Our code enforcement officer added some tweaks. It has been on the village website now for a couple of months.
Planning board weighed in.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. The planning board as well in the village weighed in on it. And the document has been, and it was publicized on the village website so people could go in and look at it if they had concerns. We're not looking to tell people that own a single family home what you do around your house. What we're looking to do is protecting large parcels of property. It's primarily, not aimed at, but primarily to protect us from overdevelopment. But yes, we did add some things that we thought were more fitting for the village. I know Bill weighed in on some, Jim Kane did, Manny did, the planning board weighed in as well, and council took a look at it. So what we'd like to do is pass it. So,
Did we open the public hearing?
no, I was just giving the
Oh, okay,
background.
Okay.
So what I need to do now is may I get a motion to open the public hearing on the tree preservation law?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Do we have anybody from the public hearing my long preamble that would like to speak to the tree preservation law? Seeing no one. Joe?
My understanding is that we might have been waiting for comments from the town conservation committee.
Yes, I talked to them and they had no problem with it.
So there you go.
They liked some of the caveats that we added.
Some of the, we made ours a little bit tighter.
Stricter.
A
Section
little
153-4, paragraph
Yeah, I
B.
could read it.
Yes.
That was the one that we
Yeah.
added.
So we added some on there. We made copies available to Cornwall Conservation Advisory Council, and if they had pushed back and said, no, don't do this, we would have taken a pause on it. But we feel comfortable with the way that it is. So, hearing no one from the public wishing to speak on it, I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing on the tree law. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll pass the resolution when we get to it. Okay, next thing, local law entitled, quote, authorization of electronic filing of annual conflict disclosure statements, close quote. Every village employee, including the members sitting up on this dais, have to fill out an annual disclosure form, which basically says, do you own properties in Aruba or off the coast of, Costa Rica? Or, what are your assets? Are there any conflicts and interests in the decisions you're making up here in regards to properties or things that you own? We have an ethics committee. It's made up of 3 people. Mr. Bradley Lavallee, they don't get enough credit, that's why I'm going to mention them by name. Professor John Ross and Brandy Schaefer McClendon. They're 3 people that their pay and benefits are 0. They have to meet several times a year, and they basically go through our employee disclosure statements to make sure that there are no conflict of interest. By village code, you're required to turn your disclosure statement in paper form. So what we're going to do tonight is to change that, because obviously the ethics committee would like to be a little bit more efficient. They'd like to exit the 18th century and enter the 21st century, and to be able to do this, still protecting people's private information, but to be able to do this electronically. So essentially, what this resolution is going to allow them to do it via electronic means. So with that said, I'm going to make a motion to open up the public hearing to authorize the electronic filing of annual conflict disclosure statements. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Would anyone from the public like to come up here and tell me why we need to continue to do this on paper and not do this electronically? Would anybody like to speak in support of doing this electronically? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to close the public hearing regarding the authorization of electronic filing of annual conflict disclosure statements.
Don't close. Don't close.
Why are we keeping it open?
Well, it's been referred to the ethics board for their comments.
They're the ones that asked for this.
More the reason why they should make sure it's okay.
So we're keeping this one open.
Continuing it to the December meeting.
All right.
I mean, you can take action, but I think
No,
you'd
no, no,
want
no,
to
I don't
get
want to step on their toes.
Past like
Yeah.
4 good ones.
Yeah, I know. The bottom line is we don't want to have anybody quit on the ethics board, because you know how hard it is to get somebody to sit on that board? So no. All right, so I'm just going to make a motion to leave this open.
and continue it or adjourn it to the December meeting
What he said.
for their comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on. Guess what? We're at the resolution level. Okay, so I know what we're doing on the west side of Churchill Street. Blah, 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 blah. The next thing is the local law extending the term limits of village trustees and amending Chapter 15 of the Village Code, adding Article 3 governing terms of elected officials. It's a long one. I'm not going to read it, as Jim Kane, the deputy mayor, always says to me. I'm going to make a motion to pass this local law, which is seeking to extend the term lengths, not term limits, of the village trustees from 2 years to 4 years, amending Chapter 15 of the Village Code, adding Article 3 governing terms of elected officials, and placing this on the ballot on March 18th as a ballot initiative for the residents of the village of Cornwall and Hudson to weigh in on. And I would like to submit the resolution as per document. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Question for council, just, is the village code doesn't currently have a provision labeled term lengths for elected officers? We're adding that.
It's a portion. We have in our code the portion of the code defines what public officers of the village are.
Mhm.
And all I'm suggesting is that we create a new section, section 3, I think, and it will just set forth the text that's in the local law that says when the terms are, they'll go from 2 years to 4 years, and when it becomes effective.
All right, did I get a second? I did. Any further comment or discussion from the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's gonna be on the ballot. Now, Madam Village Clerk, you know what you need to do to make sure that that gets onto the ballot? Do we have to obviously coordinate with the Orange County Board of Elections, I'm guessing, to make sure that that happens? And NICOM is helping as well. So in March, there will be a mayoral election. There will be 2 trustee seats open, and we'll obviously announce those as we get closer, but that's what'll be on the ballot, plus the ballot initiative to extend the trustee lengths of term. Okay, moving on from that, the next item, excuse me, give me a second to work through this. The tree law.
Roll.
All right, here we go. All right, so regarding the public hearing on the local law to create chapter 153 of the village code entitled Tree Preservation. May I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Further discussion?
It's been a long time coming.
I know, I'm biting my nails right now. Further discussion?
It's only the 6th draft. There's time for more.
Better than the lighting law.
That's right.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'm just gonna do this.
We have a tree preservation law now. All right. Village of Cornwall and Hudson should have one. Okay. Next item is to, the overriding of the tax levy limit. So, what does that mean? Every year, New York State provides a number to municipalities in regards to how much you can raise taxes. Now, as a village board, which I believe I can speak for this entire village board, that prides itself on being as fiscally prudent in regards to spending taxpayer dollars, every year, costs increase, whether it's health benefits to our union members, whether it's increases in bump ups in salaries for our union members or for our employees. Every year, those costs go up. Inflation, when we buy a load of sand to put on your streets, one year it costs this, the next year it costs X plus whatever. So all those things as they increase, it's not us deciding we're going to spend money on new things. It's as our budget begins to expand. Now, the village, and I'm going to get to this when we talk about not the audit, but the compilation we just had about village finances, which I do have some good news about. But every year we have the option of using fund balance, which means unallocated monies that the village has to defray those costs. But at some point in time, you do have to, increase taxes in order to pay for certain things. And in this regards, this year, the tax cap that we are only allowed to go up to unless the village board votes to exceed it is 1.0067%, right? I got it right?
Got it correct.
1.006% of what your current taxes are. That's our tax cap. The board every year, mostly pro forma, votes to exceed that. The last years, and you've been on here much longer than me, and you have as well, but in the last 3 years, and I've been the mayor, and the 2 years that I was a trustee, I don't believe we exceeded it, or if we exceeded it, it was by 0.00 something. We stayed in that ballpark. Am I correct on that?
Dave, I think it's only once that it was a very insignificant amount that we override.
And just to restate, what we would be voting on now is whether or not to allow ourselves to exceed it if we need to.
That's it,
Based on the
exactly.
budget
So
exercise.
right
Correct.
now, because the village's cycle, so the village's
Sorry.
cycle is March 1st until February 28th or 29th, depending upon whether or not it's a leap year or not. That's the village cycle.
Budget cycle.
The budget cycle. The town's is January 1st to December 31st. So we have to have a budget in place by February 1st, and that's what we're working on right now. But tonight, the village board is going to vote, absent some pushback, is going to vote to exceed that tax cap if so needed. But I just gave you the recent history of what we have not done. But it gives us the flexibility if we do need to adjust over 1.0067% of the budget, we can do that.
I think tonight we're
And
just
I-
voting on the public hearing.
That's it.
We're just opening the public hearing. I'm sorry, we're not voting on that. We have to have that vote done by, I thought it was November. Is it December that we can do that? When we met with Justin this morning, I thought he said we needed to vote on it. But maybe we need it by December, because if we're gonna have a public hearing, we have to notice it.
This is the noticing tonight.
That's what I'm saying.
We're
We have to
setting it for
notice
December
And then
16th.
setting it for December 16th. Can you just verify that with Justin tomorrow for me? And if we have to, we can always call a special meeting and take a vote. But, all right. So for tonight, so I'm going to set the time and place for the public hearing on a proposed local law to override the tax levy limit established in General Municipal Law, Section 3-C. I'm going to enter this as per document. I'm not going to read this entire thing, but essentially it is to allow the village board to exceed the tax cap. Again, relatively pro forma. We vote to do it every year, not that we exceed the tax cap every year, but it allows the village board that flexibility. May I have a second to set the public hearing? Further discussion? Judge, anything else?
No, I'm just going to see if I can check the time. Go ahead and adopt it. If
Okay.
I find something to the contrary, I'll let you know.
All right, so we're going to set the date for
December 16th.
December 16th, which is the next village board business meeting at 7:00 in the Edward C. Moulton Jr. Memorial Boardroom at Village Hall located at 325 Hudson Street, Cornwall, Hudson, New York, 12520. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's been set. MS4, okay. Whereas the village board wishes to set a time and place for a public hearing to consider the adoption of the municipal separate storm sewer systems, or MS4 audit, hereafter referred to as the project. Now therefore it is hereby resolved that the village board hereby determines that it will be the lead agency with respect to the review of the project in accord with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA. And Part 617 of the regulations implementing SECRA, since there are no other agencies that have the authority to approve the project, and it is further resolved, the village board hereby classifies the action as an unlisted action under SECRA, and it is further resolved that a public hearing be held by the village board in order to receive comments and suggestions regarding the audit of the municipal separate storm sewer systems, MS4, and to receive any comments concerning the potential adverse environmental impacts of the proposed project in accord with SECRA on December 16, 2024 at 7:01 p.m. at the Village Hall located at 325 Hudson Street, Cornwall, Hudson, New York. And is further resolved, the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause public notice of said hearing to be given as provided by law. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I didn't think there was any discussion on MS4. All right, resolution of the,
I do have a question about it. It's an annual audit, right?
Yeah,
I didn't.
right. I hear, yeah.
They've made a lot of changes recently to how it's filled out, many different things.
but we do it every
We
year.
got to sit in one of the,
Yes.
and it was.
Actually, rather interesting.
A lot of experience in his.
Yes.
His explanation was, I don't know.
All right, so that's done. Next item, resolution of the Village Board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson scheduling a public hearing on the proposed extension of the village's cable television franchise agreement with Spectrum Northeast LLC. All right, I'm going to introduce the following resolution and ask for its adoption. Whereas an application has been duly made to the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson by Spectrum Northeast LLC, an indirect subsidiary of Charter Communications Incorporated, a limited liability company organized and existing in good standing under the laws of the state of Delaware, doing business at 2604 Seneca Avenue, Niagara Falls, New York, 14305, for the approval of a renewal agreement for Charter's cable television franchise for 15 years, commencing with the date of approval by the Public Service Commission. And whereas the franchise renewal agreement would bring the franchise into conformity with certain provisions of the Federal Cable Communications Policy Act of 1984, as amended in certain court rulings. Now therefore it is hereby resolved pursuant to and in accordance with the provisions of section 617.6 of the regulations implementing the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, the village board determines that the proposed action is subject to SECRA, and it is further resolved that the village board hereby determines that it will be the lead agency with respect to the consideration, review, and determination of the significance of the aforementioned action pursuant to SECRA regulation section 617.6B1I. Since there are no other agencies that have the authority to approve the action, it is further resolved that pursuant to SECRA regulation section 617, the village board hereby classifies the aforementioned action as a type 2 action and determines that no further SECRA review is required, and is further resolved the village board hereby schedules a public hearing to consider the approval of a renewal agreement for Charter's cable television franchise for 15 years, commencing with the date of approval by the Public Service Commission for December 16th, 2024 at 7:02 p.m. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? Jim, this is the thing that was in your wheelhouse.
Yes.
Anything you want to add on that?
Question, Bill?
Bill?
Just, I was curious about why it's regulated by SECRA, and then if a type 2 action just means we get to determine that it has no environmental impact. Is that the?
Yeah, it's first step is identifying the action and classifying it. So I say, this is a personal way that I do it. It's subject to SECRA. So you look at it pursuant to SECRA. SECRA says it's type 2. That's all you need to do.
Okay.
Just determine that you don't have to review it any further.
Okay.
But we could change the language if you want to tweak it.
No, I was just, because many of the resolutions that we passed that seem similarly not related to environmental concerns are not regulated, are not subject to SECRA.
I think it's a
but this one
default,
is,
though,
and
isn't
I
it?
just,
It's like almost, it's a pro forma thing where you have to check the block and saying that you are subject to it or you're not.
Right.
There has to be some recognition that you did it.
yeah.
Right.
No, I understand that. I just thought that many of the things we pass are not,
Right.
or don't
Right.
fall under SECRA.
Yep.
And I was just wondering why this one would potentially fall under.
I did a little research. It's not entirely clear. This is a little bit of belt and suspenders.
Gotcha.
If you look at some municipal resolutions, they do as I did. Some others don't have any recognition of SECRA at all. Most commonly, we do it when we adopt local laws. Since this affects the public generally, and since it's a franchise, it's really a kind of a license agreement. I felt more comfortable at least acknowledging that it was potentially subject to SECRA and then classifying it as type 2.
Thank you.
So what I just wanted to point out is Dave Decker and I have been working on this for months. There's a few things. We did make some changes to the franchise agreement. Just so you understand is that the franchise agreement, the village gets a 5% fee from it's 5% of their gross revenue. That's what we get from them with respect to this franchise agreement. We made a bunch of changes to it. One of which I was trying to get out of them was, we had a lot of these. We fixed some stuff in regards to indemnification, insurance, notice if things change. One of the things I was really pushing for was having them come out and clean up the lines, the dead lines, so to speak. We got to an impasse, but at the end of the day, what they did agree is they said, look, if you start giving us a list of the telephone poles with the wires, and so I gave them a list of 12 of them, and what they did for me is they verified that they don't own any of them, and all these wires that are dangling are Verizon. So what I plan on doing is that Mr. Carmada is a pretty good guy. That provision was part of this contract. I will do my best to continue as many as I can of identifying any of the telephone poles that have these wires, and they'll tell us, whose wires they are. Step 2 of this is actually dealing with Verizon, and it's like you have a better shot of finding Jimmy Hoffa than having Verizon get back to us.
We've been trying to contact Verizon. They're not even responding.
Yeah. We're
Our,
pursuing
our
our
franchise agreement with them is still open. We didn't approve it, did we, or did we?
No, that's
We haven't taken any act. They won't get. They won't, not even getting back to us.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's expired, like, we're about to, very close. So that's where it stands. And in regards to the fee is non-negotiable, the 5%. It's pursuant to federal law, the Cable Communication Act of '84, and its amendments. So that's not negotiable, just so you know.
Thank
that's
you.
where we stand.
Thank you for your work on that too. So, and I'll second what Jim said, in dealing with Alex or Mr. Carmada, has been very responsive to our request to look at these poles and to clean up anything that belongs to them. So, I think we're in good stead here. So, if there's no other further discussion,
I just have one comment. Before our December meeting, Jim, if you and I could just confer on this, I want to make sure that everything that you've wanted to include is in, it's correct.
Yeah, I have reviewed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe we just circulate it to
I'll-
the board one more time.
Yep.
Make sure and answer everybody's questions so
you're
we're
telling
ready.
us we're not passing the resolution tonight?
No, we're
Okay.
we're scheduling the public hearing.
Public hearing, yeah.
Got
I
it.
just want to make sure when we have it, we're all looking at the same thing and it's final.
But we are going to be able to set the public hearing
Sure.
tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
All these public hearings in December, I expect to see 100 people in this room.
And I scheduled one at 7, one at 7:01, the next at 7:02, and the next at 7:03. Okay, resolution, special event application for a wedding at Donahue Farm. We are going to table this one. Phyllis Murphy, who is the director for the Town Recreation Department, had wanted to come make an appeal to the board tonight. We had allowed the board, we had given a special permit early on in the process after we took ownership of the Donahue Farm for someone to have a wedding down there with strict guidelines, regulations, and oversight. And Phyllis, who proudly said that she had the last wedding down there before the village bought the property, said that she would, look over it and make sure that it was all done to the board's requirements, and it was a success. And she's not able to be here tonight. We're going to table this. She is looking, this is looking to be done a year from now, November 8th of 2025. Obviously, when you're talking about a wedding, people want to get it on the calendar and know what they have. So we need to take action on it soon, but we'll wait till next month to take action on it. Phyllis will come in and brief us on exactly what the boundaries are and what they're going to do. And then obviously Bill will take that back and Phyllis is on the Donahue committee, so that makes it convenient. We'll take it back to the Donahue committee, make sure they're comfortable with it. So I'm going to table that.
And those people happen to be neighbors to the Donahue
These
Farm.
folks happen to live in a contiguous property to the Donahue Farm property, so if we can't figure out a way to help them out with this, I mean, I think that's what the property is for, but yeah, this will be a special exception. Okay, annual supply bids. The village clerk has reported that a bid opening was held in the village office on November 15th, 2024. Water treatment chemicals, bids were received from Surpass Chemical Corporation and Slack Chemical Company Incorporated. So I'm going to make a motion to award the bid to Surpass Chemical Corporation in the amounts received on November 15th, 2024, which I'm assuming, Doris, it doesn't say it here, but I'm assuming that was the lowest bid.
Yes, it's in the packet.
Okay, all right, I'm just doing it off of this, but all right, lowest bid. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, further discussion? All
Are they
in fa-
new, Mike? Never heard of them.
Surpass?
No, they're our current provider. And just for some clarity, we bid out for 3 chemicals. 2 of the 3 are not the lowest bid, but the third chemical is substantially lower than the next bidder. So under our best value practices in consultation with Joe, we recommend to stay with Surpass.
Got it. Okay, so the next one is off-road diesel. Bids were received from Mirabito Energy Products, Morgan Fuel, doing business as Bettini Fuel, and SOS or M. Spiegel and Sons. I'd like to make a motion to award the bid to Mirabito Energy Products as they are the sole bidder. How are they the sole bidder if there were 3 on there? Okay, so they're not the sole bidder, so why are we going with Mirabito Energy Products? They are the lowest bidder, not the sold.
Total, if you look at.
Okay, got it. So, in the amount received on November 15, 2024, may I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We didn't,
I don't think we voted on.
we
the
didn't
first
vote
one.
on surpass.
We didn't vote on surpass?
No.
Okay, then,
Or slack, so.
okay, so regarding,
Slack was the other bidder.
yeah.
Oh, okay, got it, got it,
Surplus,
right,
yeah,
right.
we're going with surpass,
We need
so,
to vote on that.
so all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we voted on that. We voted on Mirabito. And now we're moving on to the aluminum sludge removal services? And that's TAM Enterprises. They're the sole bidder. So I'm assuming I'm going to make a motion that we go with TAM as the sole bidder. May I have a second?
Second.
Anything to add, Mike? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So moving on to sewer credit for accounts number 6362, number 7624, and number 7590. I'm going to make a motion and move for its adoption to approve the following sewer credits as previously discussed in attorney-client. A sewer credit of $755.24 for account number 6362. A sewer credit of $900 even for account number 7624, and a sewer credit of $376.53 for sewer account number 7590. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the next thing I'm gonna do with regrets, but today I received a email from our trustee, not our trustee, but our trustee, records management clerk, Barbara, and because I'm always going to mispronounce her beautiful German last name, but Pflughaupt, I believe I pronounced it right. Barbara's moving on at the end of this week, and she wanted to let the board know that she is leaving with regrets and moving on. She's gonna have hard shoes to fill, very difficult shoes to fill. But I'm going to ask the board to accept with regrets the resignation of Barbara as of November 22nd, 2004. And I know that this morning at the department head meeting, discussing it with the department heads, she's helped everybody there as well as in the front office. And in her short couple of years here has really made an impact. So we're going to miss her.
She's absolutely helped me out.
Yep.
A bunch of things.
I know she's helped a number of, yep. So, may I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, which brings us to the next point, which is to authorize the village clerk to post for an administrative assistant. This administrative assistant is going to be a person that's going to try to fill some of the roles that Barbara's done, and also to serve as administrative assistant to Storm King Engine number 2. So we're going to work out on what that breakdown of timing is going to be, but this administrative assistant will be working for the firehouse as well as being a part-time clerk up here, filling duties and responsibilities as needed, as well as being trained up on our records management system, which Barbara took from the Stone Age to the 21st century. And so it really is just a matter of managing it as opposed to setting it up. So we'll have to come up with how we're going to write up that job description, but that is our plan. So working out whether it's going to be 10 hours a week for the firehouse, 5 hours a week as a records management clerk, and 5 hours as a floater, or whatever it is, but we'll work that out. We'll certainly want the chief and the firehouse to have conversations with us about that, and obviously the village clerk will be making the determination on how we post that. So I'm going to make a motion to authorize the village clerk to post for this administrative assistance. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item is the chief of the police department, Chief Dixon, came and said that he has a number of surplus police computers. And so I'm going to make a motion and move for its adoption to declare the following outdated equipment surplus and to authorize the village clerk, Doris Wickizer, to sell and or dispose of the same 4 Panasonic Toughbook laptop computers, model Charlie Foxtrot 53, serial number 00186-190-720-814, and number 00186-190-720-733, and number 00186-220-302-479, and finally, number 00186-190-720-782. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Just out of curiosity, do those get wiped by New Windsor IT or something like that before
Yes.
we? Yeah.
Yeah, because these are the tough books that they use in their patrol cars. So obviously there's, criminal histories on them, there are plates being run, that kind of stuff. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item is the resolution of the Village Board of the Village of Cornwall, Hudson, setting the election date for the village for 2025. So whereas the New York State election law mandates that each village must establish the polling place and hours that the polls will be open for village elections, and whereas the Village Board of Cornwall and Hudson, after due consideration hereon, has determined the polling location and hours of voting in accordance with the standards set forth in the New York State election law, now therefore let it hereby be resolved by the Village Board of Cornwall and Hudson that pursuant to New York State election law, section 15-104-3, the location of the polls for the election of March 18, 2025 shall be the Village Hall located at 325 Hudson Street, Cornwall and Hudson, New York, and be it further resolved by the Village Board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson that public voting for 2 village trustee positions, each for terms of 2 years, currently, and 1 position for village mayor for a term of 2 years will be conducted on March 18, 2025, with the polls remaining open between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Just the referendum that's on the ballot doesn't apply to. Does it apply to the seats that are being voted on
No.
in the same
No.
election?
No.
Right,
No,
it's the
because you have
following
to,
cycle.
you have to
Yeah.
wait to see if the referendum is
Right,
approved,
right,
so it'll
right.
go into effect after that.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Joe, let me do this water rates one. I want to make sure I got the right one here for that. That's the one I got from Joe. Oh, okay. And that should be right here. Okay, move this over here. Okay. Water rates resolution. Okay. So, let me do it this way. That's there, and that's there. So, obviously, I've talked about this from the dais a number of times, and the village board serves as the water authority for the greater Cornwall area. So the village board is responsible for some 50 miles of pipes, the 5 reservoirs in Black Rock that Mike was talking about, the well field out on Taylor Road, a number of water treatment facilities. All of the infrastructure is owned by the village. We supply water to the town, and we supply water to residential and commercial users. Back in 1974, on September 3rd, to be exact, then Doc Donahue, who was the mayor at the time, called a special meeting of the village board because the village board serves as the water authority. And what we know from the actual minutes of that meeting, quote, in order that the taxpayers of the village of Cornwall should not be penalized for higher assessments of the water facilities in the town of Cornwall, the water committee, read the village board, recommends raising the water rates for those users outside the corporate limits of the village of Cornwall to 80% in excess of present village rates, and an increase of hydrant rentals from $55 to $100 per year per hydrant. Okay, and I've gone over this a million times, and not to bore you with the numbers all the way through, but from that 1974 acknowledgement by the board that we were being charged for our water properties in the town, we were paying property taxes, and then the school district, the Cornwall Central School District, also charged us school taxes. I don't know what the rates were back then, but the board then decided that plus 80% of anything outside of the village was going to be the charge to make up those monies. Well, in the ensuing years, because from 1974 to 19 1985, that plus 80% applied to the school district and town users. In 1986, it went to 79% differential. And then from there, it went to 70% differential in 2004. And then in 2017, the differential dropped all the way down to 52%. And then in 2018, it dropped to 36%. And then in 2019, it arrived at the current disparity, which is 33%. What does that mean? Village consumers pay $12 per 1,000 gallons of water delivered to their homes or businesses. Town users and the school facilities that are in the town, because we charge the school facilities in the village rate, pay $16. That's the 33% disparity. So the reason why there was an 80% disparity there in 1974 was to make up for the fact that we pay property taxes and school taxes on our facilities, which doesn't make sense to me. Why doesn't it? Orange County exempts our properties and take no county taxes. And in other municipalities, and I'll use a close one, in Newburgh, the town is not charged by the city of Newburgh that delivers water on city properties in the town. They waive them. But the town doesn't do it for us. And the town's argument and the school district's argument has been another community could potentially come in and sue us if we give you a better deal. The argument can be, it shouldn't apply. We're part of, the village is part of the town, and that's different than an outside community. But I've tried over the last 3 years speaking to 2 different Board of Education presidents, speaking to the superintendent, speaking to the assistant superintendent of business, and speaking to the town supervisor, 2 of them. I have not been able to convince them to do things differently. So the village board is looking at the numbers and the numbers of what we pay right now. We have a $3 million water budget. The $200,000 that we pay for the right and the privilege to deliver water to the town and to the school district is 7% of our annual budget. $200,000 is 7% of $3 million. So every year, and it doesn't just affect village residents, because village residents aren't the only ones that pay into the water system. So does Mrs. McGillicuddy in the town. She does as well. So we were looking at a way that we could hopefully make a deal with the town and the school district to get them to exempt the properties. They're not inclined to do that. Although I got an encouraging email from the town supervisor today that said that the town is open to having further additional discussions with us, understanding that tonight I'm going to read a resolution that's going to read in what the new rates are going to be, establishing a tier system. So the village rates will have a village rate for residents and a village rate for commercial. The town will have a rate for town residents and town commercial. And then there will be a municipal rate. And what does that municipal rate mean? It's a rate for the taxing authorities. The town is the taxing authority here. They could waive those property taxes. Those would make the school district's taxes go away. The town, we pay about $31,000 a year to. The school district, about $157,000 a year. Hence the $200,000 that is coming out of not the village's Gen A fund or our budget. It's coming out of the water budget. It's coming out of the $3 million budget. And again, it's 7% of our operating costs. The town just completed their budget for the year. They have a $17 million a year budget. At last check, and I just asked Trustee Carnwright to pull it up for me, the school district budget right now is $90,260,773. So, we've asked, and when I say we've asked, I haven't done it officially, but I've reached out, had numerous conversations with all the appropriate entities. It ain't gonna happen. So what we'd like to do is, we're going to propose tonight how we're gonna set up the rate structure. And the rate structure is gonna be fair. We're going to charge a particular rate in the town, particular rate in the village. And we ain't changing Mrs. McGillicuddy's rate. We're going to change the rate to the municipality. So the town rate for town properties and the school district rate for the Cornwall Central School District, 2 facilities here and 6 or 7, Dave, in the town, those will be charged differently. And that will be somewhat significant. When you say what's somewhat significant? Well, they're paying $16 per 1,000 gallons. We're seeking to raise it $12 per 1,000 gallons to somewhere in the neighborhood of $28 per 1,000 gallons. Still well below the plus 80% that they should have been paying since the 1980s that we just never charged them. And this village board, in a measure of good faith, recently went back and changed our code and took out the requirement to charge them plus 80%. So, in a last effort of good faith, and I believe there's good faith on the other side because I've spoken to the school board president there, Mr. Jim Cragen. I've also spoken recently with the town supervisor, Mr. Wojciechowski, and they are amenable to having a meeting with representatives from the village. So it'll be myself, our attorney, the town supervisor, their council, the Board of Education president, their council, the school superintendent, and I think it'd be the same council there, but to try to work out some type of figuring out a way that the water system, not the village, but the water system can be made whole over these non-property tax exemptions. So, Joe, what am I leaving out there? I have your email, and should I read that one portion so the draft resolution that we're going to read tonight into the record creates two categories: an in-village and an out-of-village in-town for those customers. This is a historical classification. If another municipality or out-of-town user ever wants to purchase water, our code permits us to set a rate for that when and if necessary. The draft creates three classes of users: residential, commercial, and public entities. As discussed at previous work sessions, the village intends to keep its current rates for both residential and commercial users. The new commercial user class is really a placeholder for future action, and we will deal with it when we get to that. However, it is also intended to consist of, at the municipal side, the taxing jurisdictions, in this instance, the town and the school district. The classification would capture the town, the school district, the library, and the fire departments and districts. However, the public entity classification could be further refined to set a minimum threshold below which the public entity rate does not apply. In other words, below $1,000 per year in taxes paid by the village, which would then exempt the library and perhaps others from the higher rate. So, what am I leaving out, Joe, and what our intent is with this resolution to raise water rates and bring our colleagues in those two other entities to the table?
Well, I think one point is this goes back, as you said, quite a long time. The village had created a joint water committee to review a lot of these issues. And really, one of the main issues that came out of that was the fact that it cost the village more to supply water to certain customers than to the public at large. So the village has a choice. It can raise water rates for all water users, or it can try to tier in a system that allocates to the end user the costs associated with supplying water to them. So, to use the mayor's example, we can supply water to Mrs. McGillicuddy for a certain amount per 1,000 gallons, and we can, but certain other users have a higher cost. There's no reason to charge Mrs. McGillicuddy more, no reason to overtax her in a sense, when we know that certain users, we can pass that cost along directly to the users who cost more to supply water to them. So the whole tiered rate would be a more equitable and efficient way to allocate the costs of the service without overcharging or overburdening other people.
Absolutely. And it's also factoring the fact that the school district, which receives water from us at these Cornwall rates, either $12 per 1,000 gallons in the village or $16 per 1,000 gallons in the town facilities, also has children that attend the Cornwall Central School District from the town of Woodbury and the town of New Windsor. And they're not facing any exposure for, the cost of the water there. So from my perspective, and again, it's my opinion, but from my perspective, the properties should be exempted from taxes. This would be an easy fit, and we keep the water rates as they are now. But if there's resistance from that, we are going to have a meeting. We're going to see if anything can be worked out, and maybe we put all the heads together and come up with something that one of us didn't think about or the other two didn't think about and figure it out. Or otherwise, this resolution, which has now been prepared and which I'm going to read, says, whereas the Village Board of Trustees has formed a joint village and town water committee to obtain input from our stakeholders concerning water service both within and outside village boundaries, and has undertaken an exhaustive review, with emphasis on exhaustive, and analysis of the cost incurred by the village in producing and supplying water to its customers, including the manner and means by which water charges were historically determined, and whereas the village's analysis has led to the determination that the historical binary means of setting rates by apportioning the cost of producing water based solely upon residency does not adequately or equitably apportion water production cost to the end user. And whereas New York State Village Law Section 11-1118 and Village Code Section 165-6 authorize the Village Board of Trustees to set water usage charges, and whereas based upon its analysis and as an initial step in implementing revisions to its water rate structure, on or about May 20th, 2024, the Village Board adopted a local law amending the Village Code to eliminate what it believed was an inequitable historical requirement that outside of village water users be charged a rate 80% higher than in-village water users, and whereas the Village Board has determined that implementing a new tiered categorization of users that sets water rates based not upon residency, but upon the costs incurred by the village to provide those end users with water is a more equitable procedure for allocating water charges to its customers. Now therefore it is hereby resolved that the Village Board hereby determines it will be the lead agency with respect to the review and establishment of a tiered system of water usage rates, hereafter referred to as the action, in accord with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, and Part 617 of the regulations implementing SECRA, since there are no other agencies that have the authority to approve the action, and let it further be resolved that the Village Board hereby classifies the action as a Type 2 action pursuant to Part of 617.5C33 of the regulations implementing SECRA, and determines that no further environmental review is required, and let it be further resolved that the Village Board hereby determines the consumers of water will pay the following usage charges. For the Village of Cornwall and Hudson water usage rates, in-village rates for customer class, residential consumers will continue to pay $12 per 1,000 gallons. Commercial users or consumers within the Village of Cornwall and Hudson will continue to pay $12 per 1,000 gallons. Public entity consumers will now pay $27.33 per 1,000 gallons. For out-of-village or in-town rates, customer class of residential consumers will continue to pay, and this includes Mrs. McGillicuddy, $16 per 1,000 gallons. Commercial consumers in the town, if Mrs. McGillicuddy happens to own a business, will continue to pay $16 per 1,000 gallons. Public entity consumers, to cover the cost it costs the water system to supply them with water, will now pay $27.33 per 1,000 gallons. Okay. Before I call a roll call vote on this, I talked to the Village Board, and the Village Board is in agreement that we are going to table this resolution. This week, letters will be going out. I've already spoken to, as I said, I have a conversation with the town supervisor as well as the president of the Board of Education, and they know to expect a letter from the Village Board requesting their attendance at a meeting to try to work through this issue for one last time. And if we can do that and come to some kind of resolution, great. If not, the Village Board will take this up in either December or January and seek to have the public entity rates, as they will be hereafter referred to, changed to those numbers. Anybody in the Village Board have anything to add?
Yeah, I just, Mike and I were actually just texting back and forth, and when you brought up the $90 million budget that the school district has, so at 150 or 157, we're talking about a point, not a 1%, but a 0.16% of their budget. This is $157,000. So it's minuscule. Absolutely, it's insignificant to them. As you would, as you put it before, I think you called it a rounding error. So just people have to understand that this is, I hope we come to an agreement with them, but the bottom line, it's an insignificant amount to them. When you consider their budget.
And I think one of the things that the village board is prepared to offer to our colleagues in the town and in the school system is what our attorneys refer to as, instead of a payment in lieu of taxes or a pilot program, a silent or a services in lieu of taxes. I mean,
Just forget I ever came.
I know, I love it. I love it. And after I leave here, I'll think about myself and say I came up with it on my own. But just today, Mike, what's going on at the school system? Is it at the high school that there was a leak issue on their piping into the school?
So it's not at the high school, it's at the Lee Road School.
At Lee Road.
They have a leak that's going on there. They're gonna have to hire an outside contractor to come in and fix it. There's gonna have to be a boil water advisory issued when they shut down to that school. So there's a lot of things that we can offer them that we're the experts in and they're not,
So we do want to try to make this effort to try to work something out. But if not, again, as you talked about that rounding error for a $90 million budget, in a $3 million budget, it's 7% of our budget. So it's not insignificant, and that's the only thing we're looking to recover. And we don't want to, have Mrs. McGillicuddy, who is not that taxing authority, bear that cost. We want it to come from the taxing authority who is costing additional monies to us to deliver them water. Bill, I think you had something.
Yeah, just recognizing that it was an exhaustive review, can either the superintendent trainer or council or you summarize why it's more expensive to provide the service to these taxing authorities?
Because they're taxing us.
They're not taxing us because we are providing water.
No, they're
So
taxing
it
the
costs
water
us
property.
additional monies that
Understood.
we have to bear. But that's a great question.
Well, it's
but that
a
is why.
component of the cost structure of our water system is property taxes on the facilities.
On the water facilities specifically.
Yes, no,
right.
I understand.
Correct. Yeah, no, I know you do. I'm just
Yeah.
reinforcing the
So
point.
that's the additional cost.
And you, I think you had just said it, but I just wanted to make sure that I understand correctly. The proposed rate, should we end up passing this resolution, the proposed rate is designed specifically around their usage and the amount that we are taxed as an attempt to essentially recoup that. Okay. Mike, are there any other, not to put you on the spot, are there any other cost components to providing the school district and the town, or those are the two taxing authorities, with water that make it more expensive beyond the fact that they are a component of our cost structure?
No. I mean, the taxes are directly attributable to them.
Well, sure.
Mrs. McGillicuddy doesn't charge us a tax.
They're what, the second largest user too, right?
Second or third?
Second or third.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mike, in your research, this tiered structure is not an anomaly what we just came up with, right?
No, it's
Municipalities, I know being on the water committee, you've
Yeah.
looked at this.
it's called a cost to serve, and many water systems they have such structures. It's done in different manners, but it's all about building in a cost to serve that particular property.
So, Michael, today when I stopped down at the water department, you and I had a conversation after you got off the phone with the engineers. Can you just brief the village board really quickly on what we discussed by way of costs in regards to the evaluation of the Sphagnum Dam and the cost that it is going to cost us to remediate that?
Sure.
How soon we need to do that?
Sure. So we've been talking over the last couple of years about refurbishing the Sphagnum Dam. It needs to be done. I got a proposal from our engineers today for them to provide the design services. Their cost for just the design alone is $233,000.
Right there. How much?
$233,000.
Okay. How much are we paying in property taxes and school taxes for the privilege of delivering water to the town residents and for the school district?
Not including the Newburgh schools and the town of New Windsor, who we also pay taxes to. Cornwall authorities is just under $200,000.
Thank you, Mike. Keep going.
And then the cost of the actual, the estimated cost of the actual work to do the refurbishment to the one dam is approximately $2.3 million.
Which is really staying.
Design is 10% of the cost of.
Yep.
Yeah. That's exactly
And we've applied for grants, and we're gonna continue to apply for grants, but this isn't something that we can wait on a hope and a prayer that we get a grant.
And I'm going to give, once we get to it, I'm going to give it what the fiscal health of the village is after this last compilation. But if we think that we've got a pile of money that we can just pay for that to be done, this is something that's going to have to be bonded out. But again, we talk about people go, Jimmy, why are you chasing $200,000 a year? Because $200,000 a year is a big dip for us and what we have to look forward to in regards to repairing this dam. And that's going to have, it won't be on my watch, God forbid, unless something happens in the next 4.5 months, but it's going to be on this board's watch that this happens, and we're going to be trying to figure out how we're going to come up with the money to do that and how we're going to pay for it. So that's the method to the madness. Thank you for that, Mike. Bill, any other questions of Mike or?
No, thank you very
Good.
much.
Any other trustee in regards to water? Okay, so having said that, I'm going to close that by saying we are going to table this resolution. If we need to make any tweaks to this, as council continues to look at it, as we continue to look at it, but as for right now, that is the board's resolution in order to raise water rates, but we're going to explore every opportunity to try to work something out with our colleagues in the town and the school district to avoid doing that. If we can't, the board will vote on this. Okay? All right, moving on. Doris, where am I?
I don't have the resolution for the tanker truck.
Chief, you're on the spot now. So can you give a quick dump on our search for, this is the emergency provision of a engine or a pumper to keep our volunteer fire department in a position to respond to fires here, and what you're looking to do?
So as you know, we lost one of our engines back on May 4th when it was involved in an accident. And yes, this is an emergency. It doesn't seem like it because it's moving slowly, but it takes time to buy a used fire truck. The assistant chief and I, Commissioner Jampola, the captain, we've looked at a number of possibilities to replace the engine that we lost, knowing that we have a pumper tanker coming 2 years from now. In December of 2026, we expect delivery. 2 years. In the meantime, we have only one engine, and that is very problematic. Having only one engine, some of the standby we did the past month, we took the engine out of the village. That leaves no engine in the village. As I've heard you say, if you have two, if you have one. If you have one, you have none. Right now, we only have one. We've looked out west in Pennsylvania, down to Long Island. We've looked at our neighboring departments. The engine that we found down in Mount Sinai on Long Island, we think suits our needs well. It's 2000, so it's 24 years old, but it has life in it. It's been well maintained. It's approximately the same size as the engine that we lost. It has 500 gallons of water rather than 750, but it has the same 1,500 gallons per minute pump. The rig that we lost sits 6 people, but 2 of those seats were flip down seats, not the safest in the world. This one has 6 seated positions with air packs in each position for the firefighters. So it'd actually be a little bit of an improvement over what we have.
Any type of retrofitting to be, obviously you're gonna have to letter it, but as far as like any kind of mechanical retrofitting or equipment retrofitting on it?
Nothing substantial. Coming from Long Island, they are a fully hydranted community. We'll need to put on some racks so we can carry our hard suction, so we can draft out of ponds in the river. But that sort of work will be minimal. The price that we got this morning is $60,000. It's $5,000 less than the department had been talking. It comes with a taillight warranty. So long as they can see the taillights, it's warranted. When we leave Long Island, it's an as-is purchase.
Got it. And what's the exact cost of it?
$60,000.
$60,000 even. All right. Emergency purchase, what you're requesting the board to do is approve this purchase on an emergency basis. Obviously, this is something that we haven't budgeted for, so under the circumstances, I imagine it'll be something that the board will be comfortable with using fund balance to. I'm sorry, this is the insurance.
Right, so far we've received approximately $223,000 in insurance funds for our loss. We think there might be more to recover there, but.
This would all come out of the insurance?
That's your decision, but makes sense to me.
Okay, all right, so we wouldn't be going into fund balance to do this. This would be a purchase out of the insurance monies. Okay, so essentially, we need board approval to purchase this, correct, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to,
I'll make a motion to purchase.
you do it.
All right, I'll make the motion then. Make a motion that the village purchase a model 2000 Pierce Dash 1500/500 pumper, VIN number 4P1CT02P0YA000305 from, let's see, what's
Brindley Mountain Fire.
Signal 5.
is it from Brindley Mountain or is it from the actual fire company that's in Long Island?
So the contract that came to us is with Brindley Mountain down in Alabama.
Okay, so it's from Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus, Union Grove, Alabama, in the amount of $60,000. And
Funds to be used,
Well, I would add to the resolution that based upon the representations from the fire company and the chief, that it's an emergency purchase. It's made in under exigent circumstances, such that the board's acknowledging and waiving, not going out to bid for the purchase.
so amended.
okay? Do we need to add anything about where the funds are coming from?
I don't think you know yet, so I don't think it's necessary.
Just leave it at that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
make that motion.
second. I just seconded my first thing. My first thing in 5.5 years on the board, and I finally got a second in.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, 5 ayes on that. All right, chief, you're good with that? You just got permission.
I'm good with that. The contract needs a signature, and Joe, do you want to look at the contract first before it goes out?
Sure, but if it's an emergency, I don't know how much you're gonna be able to, yes. So, and just authorize the mayor to
I'll make a motion to
execute.
authorize the mayor to execute the contract between between Brindley Mountain Fire and the village of Cornwall and Hudson with respect to the purchase
Subject to review by the.
of the, subject to review by attorney for the village.
Second. Say all in favor, right?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, all right.
Enjoy doing
Who
it.
drives it up here? We do?
I'm not sure how it's going to get here. Right now, the rig is.
Don't get out of tail light range. Go back. Make sure it doesn't break down.
All right, moving on to next items are other business. All right, look alive, Mr. Halverson, I'm coming to you. Dave and I had another discussion today in regard to the Partridge Road Bridge repairs. Again, this is an emergency repair, and Dave briefed me this morning. I'm gonna ask him to do the same thing for the board. Where we are, timing-wise, what we're looking to do.
Well, our engineer put together a proposal. They had somebody come in and look to do a slip lining project. I've done a little bit more research myself. We had a price just
just getting the pipe from the company to do the slip line at about $20,000 and another $3,000 for shipping just to get the pipe here. I did a little more research on my own, and I found another product that I believe will work, and the engineer was supposed to get back to me by the end of the day, but I haven't heard from him yet. A quarter of the price just for the pipe itself. So I'm hoping we can go with that, and that's actually available and it's sitting in Newburgh right now.
We're still looking at a total project cost around $80,000.
That's what he was looking at with the 20,000. I mean, if we can get the pipe for 5,000 as opposed to 23,000, we're gonna
$20,000.
reduce considerably. So
Okay.
Wow.
I'm hoping
And our plan is still to try to do this before we move into the really
as soon
cold-
as possible.
Got it.
All right.
Okay.
And there's no flow.
Yeah. We're going to talk
So
about
as
flow.
soon as I know more, I will let you know.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Next item of business is the firehouse repairs. Obviously, almost over 18 months ago, when our building inspector made his first inspection of the firehouse to determine that due to the shifting and settling of the fill underneath of the concrete pad and the gaps that were created between the cinder blocks in the building, the village is committed to having those repaired. First of all, our engineer took a look at it and gave us a certificate of occupancy, essentially, that said the building was still safe to work out of. But I reached out to Jason and did not get a chance to speak to him today. Dave, did you happen to mention anything about the firehouse in regard to? Okay, I'll follow up on that because he's obviously got to design or tell us what we need to have done to have those gaps in the blocks sealed, closed, whatever, repaired, or whatever needs to happen, because there are some considerable ones in there.
And I've been pushing them pretty hard with the FEMA project. We have a deadline of the 21st. We have to get something into them. So I've been pushing them with that, Partridge Road and everything else. So he's,
Okay.
and with what Mike's got going.
Okay, the next thing is the moving on from water to sewer. So obviously, I've talked about this to the village board before. Everybody here is aware of the fact that we have an IMA with the town that was executed in 1967, which is exactly 2 pages, and has not been revisited since 1967, related to the sewer arrangement between the town and the village. Unlike the water system, where the village owns all of the infrastructure, and the town owns none of it, when it comes to sewer, the town owns the sewage treatment plant, but the village owns our own infrastructure. We have our own pipes that bring the sewage, that material, the effluent, down to the sewage treatment plant to be treated. Interesting enough, because I listened in on the town budget meeting and they were discussing budget lines on operational costs for the sewer system and this, that, and the other. And I know that in the future, in the very near future, they are looking at some pretty major renovations, remediations at the sewage treatment plant. The village, according to the 1965 and 1967 IMA, because there was an initial one in 1965 and then it was refined in 1967, the cost share for that was split at 1/3, 2/3, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, because from 2016 to 2021, there's a company called CAMO, C-A-M-O, that they operate the plant down there and they read the flow. So when it comes to the village, and as Dave pointed out to me this morning, not everybody in the village, I mean, the majority of people are on our sewer system, but not everybody is. And it's the same thing in the town. The vast majority of people there, although a lower percentage in the town than in the village, are on the sewer system, but there are some that are on their own private systems. So in 1967, they came up with this 1/3, 2/3 ratio. Well, the town and the village have grown differently, right? So the village has a population growth of such and such. The town has a different population growth of such and such. But here we are between 2016 and 2021, and the average for the village percentage of flow or effluent going into the system to be treated is 32%. and the folks in 1967 predicted it would be 33%.
Smart people.
Smart people. So from 2016 to 2021. So we're not getting over on the town. The town ain't going to be able to come back here and say, well, you're not paying your fair share, because from those five years, it was 32%. Now, I also asked the town to give me a copy of 2022, and in 2022, the average village percentage of flow was 30.6%. So we were actually lower than the average of 2016 to 2021. And interestingly enough, for 2023, the last year that we have these records, we held firm at 30.6%. So village is in a good spot, I think, as we go into, because the town supervisor had asked me about this, and I agree, just like we're doing with water. We're looking at it, we're trying to figure out what's fair. The town's going to want to do the same thing on the sewer side, but at least it gives us some numbers to look at and say, what is the percentage of the effluent, a fancy word for sewage, that the sewage treatment plant is treating from the village, and what is the percentage that they're treating in the town? And we are under 33%, which puts us in that 1/3, 2/3 row. Any questions from the board on that? That's just my update to you.
Naturally. Is there a meter, that's metered flow, basically? Like through whatever the final main is that comes from the village side?
There is a meter on the village side and the town side. There's two inlets. They are metered.
Thanks.
Okay, and again, that was just an FYI for the village board, because we've got, I agree that we need to update the IMA. We probably need to make it a little bit more robust and a little bit more exhaustive. And we do need to be holding these meetings, because apparently by the 1967 IMA, we're supposed to be meeting as village and town elected officials every 18 months on the sewer system. And I've been in this position for, almost 4 years, and we haven't had a meeting on sewer. So it's something that, obviously we talk, but we need to have the same relationship that we're trying to have with the town regarding water. So anyway, those are the numbers. Okay, next item is a request from an entity regarding a request for relief of a water bill. And unfortunately, when the request came in, it was already past the date where the village had any say whether or not they could do that. It had already been relevied, which means it goes to the town, and then the town sends the unpaid water bills, which include water plus late fees and penalties, goes to the town, and then the town sends it to the county so that it goes on that person or that entity's taxes. So there's not much we could do, but an entity wanted to have forgiven a substantial amount, 50% of the water that they were using, and they're a considerable high-end user for water, which the village board could not in good conscience do. We don't forgive water that somebody, consumes or uses. In rare instances, we look at fees and penalties if there's a mistake or there's something where we can argue the customer's right in this instance. But in this instance, we were not in a position to do so.
Yeah, I think that would be an unlawful gift of the water.
I knew you were going to bring that up. You're right. It would be an unlawful gift of goods or services.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, lastly, everyone's happy about this, and this is not going to take too long, but we just finished, we didn't just finish, but the audit service that handles Nugent Hausler, that are the certified public accountants that handle the village's audits and compilations, just finished the last fiscal year for the village. So the year that ends, ended in February 29th of 2024. So every year, we're supposed to have a compilation, the following year, a full audit, the next year, a compilation, the next year, full audit. Well, Jimmy, what's the difference? Well, this is a compilation, and it's a pretty thick book. It's 65 pages long. Each of the trustees has a copy of this, and it's in their drawer here to take a look at it. I sat down this morning with the village treasurer and with Justin Wood, who's our, the CPA that handles our audits. This was a compilation, and it is detailed. This is public information. But what I always ask of him when he does this is I have to have everything on one page. tell me what I need to know. I mean, we can get into the details, but I'm going to give you what you need to know. So the financial results highlights for the village, this basically gives us our fiscal health, is this. Our general fund, we took in revenues of $5,084,573, and we had expenditures of $452,152, which results, don't jump out of your seats, in a deficit of $367,579. That does not take into account, and I'm going to get to fund balance in a minute, the fund balance that the village board agreed would be part of our budgeting last year so that we didn't have to raise taxes. We agreed between 300 and 400,000. Otherwise, we are within our means. That is what that means. And I'll get to the fund balance to explain this. The total fund balance that the village has right now, the total available fund balance, is $2,986,590, which includes a capital reserve amount of $270,000. This $270,000 is made up of $90,000 for the police department, for DPW, and fire protection capital reserve funds, and it began accumulating. It was one of the things that Mayor Coyne did in the village board back in those days, 2014 and 2015, agreed to do, which meant every year that the village had a surplus, we moved $10,000 into each of those accounts in a capital account. So that's where that money accrues from. This year, we will not have a surplus, so we will not be moving money into those. But any years that we had a surplus, we would move $10,000 into each of those accounts. That makes up for the $270,000 that we have earmarked for capital funds. The total fund balance, Chief, you'll want to pay attention to this one, is total fund balance in the general fund also includes a restricted amount related to the net assets of LoSAP, which come in at $323,515 currently. The total fund balance in the general fund also includes an assigned amount appropriated for the 2024-25 budget of $158,000. The resulting unassigned, which means it's not earmarked for anything, or available fund balance is $2,235,435. So that's money that's not spoken for. So our fund balance is sitting at $2.9 million, but in essence, if we had a rainy day and we needed to pay for something, we're sitting on $2.2 million. If you understand what those capital funds were and why there's a difference between restricted fund balance and unallocated fund balance. For the general fund, the New York State Comptroller recommends a total fund balance of at least 20% of the following year's budget. 20%. Okay. Here's the kicker. Our fund balance right now sits at a rather healthy 46.8% of the following year's budget, of next year's budget. So they want you, anything below 20% triggers the comptroller getting involved and putting you on a fiscal plan and coming in and reviewing things. Recently, I think the town was down to 10% fund balance, and they had to raise taxes. It was either that or they were going to have to limit some services and cut some services. So we're at 46.8%. Now, last year we were at 56%, but we are at a healthy number there with having that much money. You don't want to have too much, but you certainly don't want to have not enough. Okay, the water fund, which is different. Remember, we have a general fund and a water fund. They took in revenues of $3,433,115 and had expenditures of $2,543,991, which left them with a surplus of $2,400,291. That total fund balance of $2,400,291 includes a capital reserve amount of $40,000 that we started doing in the water fund in the 2019 and 2020 budget years. So that $40,000 is set aside for capital reserve. The resulting available fund balance is $2,360,291. This amount is 69.39% of the following year's budget. So healthy. But again, when I say that, and people's eyes light up and go, oh my gosh, you're sitting on this big cachet of money. One of our dams is going to cost us $2.5 million to remediate. One of our dams. We have 5 of them. And that doesn't include the treatment facilities that are millions of dollars away from bringing back online, and our well field, which something could happen there too catastrophically, and we would have to remediate. Okay, so I gave you that number, 69.39% of the following year's budget. And lastly, but not least, the sewer fund. Revenues came in at $584,277 with expenditures of $423,017, which resulted in a surplus in the sewer fund of $161,260. The total fund balance of $2,365,271 includes a capital reserve amount. Remember, the capital reserve here, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Tropical Storm Irene or Superstorm Sandy, where the village board, Jim, you were here.
Yes.
The village board decided the capital, Irene. So 2011, we started putting on that $15 per pay period for capital reserve. We now have an amount that's $650,000, which started accumulating in 2014. Jimmy, why do you want to sit on that? Well, as I just talked about, the town is looking at doing a major renovation remediation project on their sewer treatment plant. How are we going to pay for that? Well, we have capital funds now set aside so that, remember, we're on the hook for 1/3 of their capital improvements and operational costs due to the flow count. That's what that money is sitting there for, to help us out for something like that. Lastly, the resulting unassigned or available fund balance in sewer, $1,715,271. And this amount is a rather staggering 338.92% of the following year's budget. So, fiscal health of the village, fiscal health of the water system, fiscal health of the sewer system is good. But you can't sit on your laurels and go, we got all this money, oh my gosh, we can just go do this, that, and the other, when you're talking about the things that have to happen. We're talking about replacing our obsolete apparatus in our fire department. The village now has a plan to do that. That equipment costs $1 million plus for each of those things. We're talking about looking at and examining our stormwater system so that those 4 huge hyperlocalized storms in 2022 to January 2024, God forbid they happen again, we can start the process of bringing our stormwater system into the 21st century. That's going to cost money. All of these things. So I feel good about this. Megan, did I leave anything out from Justin Wood's advisements to us? He felt good about it too. So any questions from the board? Any questions from the superintendents regarding those numbers? I will make sure that each trustee has a copy of this. You all got this, but this is what you need to read on here. Oh, really? Thank you. All right. So that's the last thing on there. Moving on now to for your information. Ethics, you know what, Doris? Thank you. I'm not a big candy guy, but yeah, I feel like
It's medicine.
I know it's still candy. Ethics board meeting is scheduled for Jim. Why don't you do this for me? Why don't you read the FYI?
Sure. Okay, so the ethics board meeting is going to be November 21st, 7 p.m. in the village boardroom. The snowflake lighting is going to be November 29th at dusk.
Yes, but at 5 o'clock, we got a notification today from the Main Street Committee, and they are going to start at Bridge Street.
Caroling and
At 5
hot
o'clock,
chocolate.
they're gonna start at Bridge Street. They're going
Walk
to
down.
They're going to carol down Main Street onto Hudson Street and end up at the Village Bandstand. So they're figuring an hour for that. Now remember, the snowflakes are getting put in place on the 27th. They're being plugged in on the 29th. They have photo sensors on there, so when it's dusk or dark or twilight or whatever you want to call it, they're going to pop on at different times. But 5 to 6 is that event.
And on November 30th, we have the village tree lighting at 5 p.m. at the gazebo. December 7th, Santa on the Farm at Donahue Farm at 2 p.m. December 8th, the next day, the town of Cornwall tree lighting at Shadane Circle. And then December 10th, the Fire Commission has a meeting at 6 p.m. in the village boardroom. And December 16th, our village board business meeting with many public hearings that we hope to close out.
Perfect. All right, so last opportunity for anybody from the public, and I think there's only one person here from the public would like to speak. Is your opportunity, Carol? Nothing? You're just taking notes. Oh, boy. All right, seeing nobody that wants to speak, board comments. Jimmy, I'll start with you.
I don't really have anything. I don't. So.
All right. Lori Beth, I'll go to you next.
I just wanted to say that the fire in Greenwood Lake has left all of us very unsettled, and I'm just proud that our guys are going there and helping out, and I hope that they stay safe. That's been on the forefront of my mind. I wanted to mention our village tree lighting. We're going to have a lot more extra than we usually do at the tree lighting. We're going to have the snow, the fake snow. We're going to have
If it's real snow.
it might be real snow. It might be real
good
snow.
luck. Look at Dave's face.
Pictures with Santa, letters to Santa, paint your own cookies, live music, lots and lots of fun.
I
Till the 29th.
Sorry, I did have
Oh,
two
the 30th.
alibis. One, as I just wanted to thank Regina McGrady from the Greater Newburgh Rotary Club, which includes the town of Cornwall and the village, with respect to the hometown heroes
Very
banners.
nice. Very
They
nice.
turned out they're excellent. She spearheaded this and just ran with it, and it looks great. So, and then they had a little fundraiser down at Painters. It was well attended, and just wanted a shout out to her. The other thing too was yesterday, the suicide awareness and prevention fundraiser that they had down at Storm King was incredible. It was absolutely worth going to. I'm sure Mike's going to make it an annual event. I highly recommend you to go. It was very, very well attended. I mean, the weather was great too, but great cause, something to think about to go to next year.
Good. I think you just overlooked it, but also the village menorah lighting for Hanukkah, is this year. It's actually it's different this year. It's actually after Christmas, so it's going to be December 27th. Yeah, and our Susie Armis did it for so many years, and we miss her because she was one of our part-time clerks, and she was just so good at how she did it. But Julia Dahl, one of her neighbors that lives next door to her on where Susie used to live, is going to take the project over. She's already come in to talk to us about it. So she'll handle the menorah lighting on December 27th at 5 p.m. Correct? That was it.
Yep.
What's that?
First day is the 25th. They're not going to light
Yeah,
it.
They're not going to light it on then. They're going to celebrate it on the 27th. You're right. It's on, Christmas Day is first day of Hanukkah. Okay. Dave.
I'm good.
All right. William.
I'll start with the grim one, which is just if we can keep the family and friends of Dario Vasquez in mind, who was the young grounds crew worker from Bear Mountain who passed away.
18 years old.
18, preparing a fire line in Greenwood Lake. I know that my son works on the crew that he was working on in the summers. My son didn't know him, but they're pretty broken up, and they were there on the scene and provided CPR, and it was pretty
Traumatic.
Yeah, traumatic for these young guys. And I believe our flags are at half mast. Is that correct? Half
Governor
staff.
Hochul ordered today that all flags be at half mast for this young, not firefighter, but
He was a grounds crew worker. I'm not sure
for
what
the
the
Park
official
Service
title
or something.
Yeah, at Bear Mountain.
So
specifically.
that's why the flags are half staff. Thank you for bringing that up.
Surely. And then on a more positive note, I had the pleasure of attending the County Department of Health comes to inspect our water system, guided by Superintendent Trainer, and I tagged along, and that was frankly kind of tiring, but very interesting. It went on for 4 hours, but we went to all the facilities, and I was permitted to ask questions as I like to do. So thank you very much for that hospitality, and it's, as always, just I recommend anybody take Mike up on the water tour to the extent possible.
It's enlightening, to say the
Yeah,
least.
it's really fascinating.
All right, thank you. Last thing I just want to add, I used to attend these when I was the FBI chief up here. I haven't done it in years, but a press release went out today. I thought it'd be a really nice thing just to point out that today, Orange County welcomed 46 new citizens at the, they don't do it monthly, they do it every so many months, but the November naturalization ceremony held at the Emergency Services Center auditorium, which is out where the sheriff's office is. The press release says the day was filled with joy and pride. 46 individuals and their families from different backgrounds and cultures. Orange County Clerk Kelly Eskew administered the oath of allegiance, the final part of the naturalization process, renouncing all foreign allegiance while pledging to support and defend the American Constitution and the laws of these United States. Once completed, each one of them officially became a citizen of the United States. I thought this was really interesting. The ceremony, according to Ms. Askew, she has sworn in over 1,000 new citizens through her term, and she said she wanted to extend a heartfelt congratulations to all the new citizens. She's honored to be a part of this. The ceremony, 46 people. The ceremony had 25 countries represented, with the highest being 9 from the Dominican Republic, and my second country, since I lived there for 2 years, the great country of Mexico. These happen several times a year in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security and the Citizenship and Immigration Services. If you have not attended one, it is an inspiring thing to see, with the family seated there and the folks taking their oath and becoming so proud to be American citizens. I would highly encourage you to do it. Reach out to the county clerk's office and she can advise you when the next one would be. And with that, are there any, yes, sir, alibi?
Just a reminder, all of New York State, Orange County, the burn ban is still in effect. The only thing you're allowed to burn outside right now is in your propane grill.
Politicians in effigy?
Not even that.
Not even that?
Not even that.
Wow.
Hamburgers on the propane grill.
All right, just attorneys, that's it, right?
Yeah.
But a good point the chief makes, and chief, I'm sorry, because you asked me to bring that up and I forgot.
That's right.
We discussed it this morning. That includes like if you've got a fire pit. I have a fire pit in my backyard that is, got stone pavers on it, it's got a cover on it. You are not allowed to burn those. So unless you have a wood-burning stove, which is permitted, but if you have anything on the outside, please do not burn it. We've had 2 incidents of recent where the fire department had to respond to residents in the village that one of them had a little burn pit going on and the other one was burning leaves. Please don't do that. It's not the right time for that. All right, anything else, chief? Any other alibis? All right, let's see, 2 hours and a half. Oof.
Pretty big.
All right, I know. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to make a motion to close the village board business meeting of November 18, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Keep in mind that the mics are still on, so be careful until Doris disconnects us. Thank you, Doris.
All right. Going to be caroling from.
What do you mean you can't?
No, she is, she's gonna.
Oh.
I'm not exactly lying.
All right.
Race
guys
out,
are gonna
are you gonna race out of here to go get 2 slices of
No,
pizza?
I already got it.
You picked them up before? You actually thought about it?
I ate so much
Doris,
chocolate.
we
We're still
no.
fine. I'm gonna
Oh,
throw
we're
up.
still live.
No, I never get
I
that.
cut it. Oh, I did. I did. Remember they used to send me.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.